Thank you, David. We're under the roof at Rogers Centre on a rainy Saturday night in Toronto as the Stampeders and the Argonauts clash for the second consecutive week. TSN, the exclusive broadcaster of the Canadian Football League and proud home of the 2008 Grey Cup. Well, it was 34-4 last Saturday. John Huffnagel's team on a roll, 3 straight wins. They've won 5 of the last 6, but as Dave mentioned, the Calgary Stampeder Football Club has not won here since 2000. And a mirror image, record-wise, with 3 straight losses and 5 of their last 6. Don Matthews has been at the helm for the last 2, and they continue to take on water. And will this be the game where they are able to turn it around?
And it seems for the Toronto Argonauts, it's an open audition right now to see who will be the guys who will make plays and will hang around here as Don Matthews continues to rattle the cage in Toronto.
Well, maybe they can get inspiration from last year when the 2 teams played twice within 9 days. The Argos won the first game 48-15. It was 48-1 at one point. It was no contest. But 9 days later, Calgary came back and won 33-10. So upsets can happen. Dominique Dorsey has been prolific all season long, awaiting the kickoff from Sandro DeAngelis, and we're underway. The man who set an Argo kickoff season return record last week with a return across the 30 to the 31-yard line, and it indeed is Cody Pickett to lead the Argos offense onto the field.
Second start for Cody Pickett, who had just shy of 200 yards and just 4 points of production a week ago versus the Calgary Stampeders. Dominic Dorsey will be in the backfield. Need to get him the football a lot more. Just 7 carries a week ago. There's the receiving corps with Arland Bruce, their leader and veteran. The offensive line with Mark DeWitt at guard and Jonathan Woodard out there at tackle.
They work out of double tight ends and get the ball quickly into the hands of Arland Bruce. It was brought down by the defensive end, Charleston Hughes, who has been so active this year. That's his 44th tackle.
On the Calgary Stampeders on defense will go with Justin Phillips in for Mike Lobinjo, who twisted his ankle in practice this week. Cannot play here this evening. There's the linebacking corps led by Juwan Armour and Salim Rashid, and Wes Lysak, big interception for a touchdown against Cody Pickett a week ago.
Bruce had 3, the toss, and Dominic Dorsey wide open right side. And he's slowed up at midfield and steps out on the Calgary side of half. So the Argos with an explosive start from Dominic Dorsey.
You know, Dominic Dorsey has put up some big numbers all-purpose wise. He's already broken the record for the Argos in kick returns, which isn't always a good thing. But all season long, and they played 12 games now, Dominic Dorsey has never reached double figures offensively carrying the ball, rushing the football.
Dorsey on pace for over 4,200 all-purpose yards, had 20 on that carry, and got tripped up by the turf monster there and goes down after a short gain.
Last week, 7 carries for Dominic Dorsey. I know and I understand that the Toronto Argonauts are concerned about wearing him out in a football game because he does return all the kicks, all the kickoff returns. He's a punt returner as well. Steve Barato, the offensive coordinator, would love to give him the ball more. You have to be a little careful with him.
2nd and 9, or 2nd and 11, a loss of 1 for Dorsey. Pickett has Andre Talbot over the middle, and it's a first down catch for Talbot at the Calgary 38-yard line.
That was an interesting decision for Don Matthews to go with Cody Pickett starting in his 2nd game after the loss a week ago. But one way that Cody Pickett can get a little bit of confidence if 2 things happen. One, he gets the protection he got on this play from the front 5. And the other is if he goes to reliable veterans like Andre Talbot and Arland Bruce.
Said he wasn't great, but good enough to get another start. 16 to Talbot, and now slings the ball again. This one dropped by Andre Talbot. Another 2nd down. Last week, Suits, they were just 4 for 23 in 2nd down conversions, about 17%. They've converted twice already in this opening drive.
Yeah, and he threw the interception to Wes Lysak that was returned for a touchdown. Few turnovers in that football game. He gets another chance. 193 yards passing. Some question the decision. And Kerry Joseph, a lot of people think Kerry Joseph gives them their best chance to win. But Cody Pickett gets a chance here.
2nd and 10, they drop off, and a pass over the middle, complete. PK Sam has the catch, and it's another Argo first down at the 24. So Pickett looks sharp on the opening drive.
Well, and right now, the defensive coordinator for the Calgary Stampeders, Chris Jones, is content to just go with 4-man pressure for Calgary, and they're going to just drop everybody else off and see if Cody Pickett can be patient, can read the defenses, can find the holes in the zone, and goes over the middle there and does. That's a couple plays in a row right down the middle. Last one to Talbot.
So they've extended the drive with 3 second down conversions. Back inside, Dorsey, little stutter step, and Shannon James there to haul him down.
2 rules of thumb if you're a defensive coordinator. I think Chris Jones facing a guy like Cody Pickett is so inexperienced. One thought is that you send the house. You send everybody, blitz them, see if he can handle the pressure. And don't be surprised if Chris Jones doesn't try to do that a little bit later in this football game. But right now in this first series, he's rushing 4 and dropping everybody else off to see if Pickett can read those zones.
Another 2nd and long. And 2 backs split alongside Pickett. Here's Arlen Bruce. And Bruce gang tackled at the line of scrimmage, maybe even a loss of 1. And the field goal unit will come on for Toronto after a pretty good start for Cody Pickett in his 2nd CFL start.
Well, it's a positive start. You move the football team into field goal range. Now it's up to Mike Vanderjagt to put this through and get some points on the board in series number 1, because after coming off a loss like the Toronto Argonauts did versus Calgary, 34-4 the final a week ago, I'm going to start out on a positive note, and Don Matthews may get that if he can get this field goal.
From 32 yards out. Andre Proulx in charge tonight. And now we're ready to go.
Last one never happened.
Pickett, a good job to get it down. And Vanderjagt puts it through. The Argos on the board on a Vanderjagt 33-yard field goal. The CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by Rona, proud sponsor of the CFL. Rona, the Canadian how-to people. Well, the Argos had 9 points 2 weeks ago, 4 against the Stampeders last Saturday. And an opening possession field goal here and a 3-0 lead. Vanderjagt kicks it off, and Demetrius Summers back in the Stamps lineup. Across the 35-40, and he bolts to midfield. Down the sidelines, Demetrius Summers. Terrific return. Calgary sets up for their first possession.
Well, in a game where Dominic Dorsey has beaten the Argonaut record for kickoff returns, a big return for the Calgary Stampeders, and Demetrius Summers, who goes with that wall return to the outside and down the sideline. There's really a couple of different styles of returns in football. There's the wedge up the middle return or the wall return, and that time Summers got outside that wall and picked up good yardage.
60 yards, that's the longest kick return of the year for the Calgary Stampeders. The lone setback in a double tight end formation is Joffrey Reynolds, 50 yards away from the CFL rushing lead. And Reynolds across the 35 down to the 33 has a couple of tough yards.
Henry Burris over 3,000, just shy of 3,500 yards passing coming into this game. He has Joffrey Reynolds, who had 100 yards last week rushing the football. In the backfield, there's the receiving core. Nick Lewis a little banged up, but you're going to have to rip him off the field. One of the toughest guys in the Canadian Football League. And an offensive line with Jeff Pilon back at tackle.
Our starting lineups brought to you by Holiday Inn Hotels. Look again at Holiday Inn, 2nd and 8. Here comes the rush. Burris gets it away, and it skips incomplete. Short of the intended target, Brent Ralph. As they started last week, a 2 and out, but in field goal range.
Talked to John Hufnagel before the game about this one, and he said, you know, when you look across, and I know everyone's saying how this is a mismatch on paper with what's going on in Toronto right now and all the changes they're going through. And the Calgary Stampeders 3 in a row and looking very strong in the West. And he said, you know what I did? I showed the football team tape of the last few years playing here in Toronto early in the week.
That'd do it.
Yeah.
Here's Sandro DeAngelis from 40 yards out, the Niagara Falls native. And he's been automatic most of the season. This game tied as we approach 6 minutes of the opening quarter. The CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by the 2008 GMC Sierra. Professional grade. Well, both teams registering field goals on their opening drives of the game. Calgary set up after the 60-yard kick return by Demetrius Summers. And DeAngelis sends it downfield, and Andre Dury has it. The York product up over the 30-yard line, and Cody Pickett will go back to work.
Dominic Dorsey, the big returner in this game. We've seen Demetrius Summers with a big return, and that was a wall return. Let me show you how that works. And you get this, a wingman comes out and kicks out, then the wall sets up from that second line of defenders. For Dorsey, in this case, he'll have a lead man, the other returner go through the hole first, pick up any stragglers, and then Dorsey's job is to get out and to the wall. We've already seen Demetrius Summers with a big return for Calgary, and look at Dominic Dorsey after that one. He was the blocker on the last play, didn't return it.
Well, that will be of major concern at the Argo bench. And Jamal Robertson has to check in. And running back, and he takes the handoff. Check that, Andre Dury comes in at the running back position for Dorsey, who gets attention at the Argo bench.
Yeah, it was Dorsey has been the bright light for this Toronto Argonaut team. When he runs the football either on the teams or out of the backfield. Limping as he came off and being attended to. It looks like he's just trying to walk that off and see if he can get back in this football game.
2 for Dury, 2nd and 8, quick hitter. And that ball falls incomplete. PK Sam, the intended receiver.
I'll take a look at Dominic Dorsey's projections on the season, and the first player to go over 4,000 yards in total. And of course, his president, Mike Clemens, at 1997, 3,840 yards. Dominic Dorsey, now the downside of that is a lot of the yards for Dominic Dorsey have come on kickoff returns. And if you're returning a lot of kickoffs, that means you're being scored on a lot.
Yes, last week, 7 kickoff returns. He's been getting better by the week. 342 all-purpose yards last week, 303 the week before. Both were at the time personal bests. Marcus Howell from the 26. And good downfield cover there. Raymond Fontaine streaking down, limiting the return to 3. Midway through the first quarter at Rogers Center, tied at 3. And on the sidelines, Claude Faig.
Well, Chris, one of the strengths of the Argos under the guidance of Mike Pinball Clemens was the family-like atmosphere that he created around the team. But that family-like atmosphere appears to be fractured now with the likes of Orlando Steinauer, Chuck Winters, and now Don Matthews telling one Michael Fletcher, an all-time Argo, that he is no longer wanted by the team. And one player telling me that it's got other players looking over their shoulder now, wondering if they're next. And that's hardly the recipe for a team trying to stay united in these difficult circumstances.
Well, it is a defense that is getting retooled on the fly.
Well, and giving up all kinds of yards through the process. And Kavis Reed tries to pull it together with new faces out there. But, you know, I was on teams in Saskatchewan that weren't that successful. And when you're not successful, changes are always made in professional football. It's very difficult when you're sort of playing for your job every week and there's uncertainty, and I know there's a lot of uncertainty swirling around the Argos.
2nd and 5 after the Brent Ralph catch, and that pass incomplete, intended for Kenyon Rambo, the league's leading receiver, and back-to-back 2 and outs, you know, for Calgary against that defense.
Chris, what you have to do basically as a player is you, a guy like Michael Fletcher has to just wait until he gets the call and gets the nod, or maybe moves on if that's what happens, and that's the plan for Michael Fletcher. Bottom line is he's got to just take care of himself now. The problem with that is that this is the ultimate team sport, and if there's 12 guys on defense that are just taking care of themselves because of the uncertainty, then it's awful tough to play as a team.
I think what's frustrating for Michael Fletcher, he didn't get one of those blank checks.
No, he didn't. He hasn't played under Don Matthews.
But Dorsey's back, and Dorsey with the return. Dominic Dorsey once again. He'll be collared and tossed down by the punter, Bert Dales, up across the 50. But that's a 33-yard return for Dorsey. Closed captioning of the CFL on TSN, brought to you by Sport Check. When you're in the zone, time almost stands still. Getting into the zone begins with Sport Check. Sport Check, the power of sport. So Demetrius Summers had a 60-yard kick return that set up a field goal. Now a 30-yard punt return by Dominic Dorsey. And the Argos enjoy good field position at their 52. Dorsey the tailback, and coming around, it'll be Bethel Johnson. And Johnson cuts back, and he'll be dragged down. Good defensive play, and Charleston Hughes there once again.
Well, we drew up the wall return for you to show you what that's like, but this was a middle return. There's Dominic Dorsey right there. Let me show you on the wall return. Guys are trying to get out and around and block in that angle, right? Because they're setting up the wall. But now you can see they're all inside out, inside out, inside out, inside out to create a lane up the middle for Dominic Dorsey. That's a middle return.
Been early, but the Argos are in second and long. Seems on every down, but they convert again. PK Sam, the new acquisition out of Florida State in his second game, has another first down catch.
Well, it's an open audition, so why not? PK Sam, a couple of catches in this game already, and Cody Pickett standing firm in the pocket. Again, the Calgary Stampeders going with three-man pressure that time. And 5-on-3, you should have time as a quarterback.
Just out of the reach of Juwan Armour. Now Pickett on a roll. Andre Talbot. And he somehow bounced off that contact. Dwight Anderson lost his helmet. And I think Anderson's as surprised as anybody that he got the worst of that and not Andre Talbot.
Well, and Andre Talbot, just as he caught this football, had enough time to just lower his shoulder, because this is often that play you get the knockout shot. If that ball is a little bit behind,
well, that tells you a little bit about Andre Talbot and how gritty he is. And
well, it was the timing too, Chris, because as Talbot caught that, he's standing straight up, turns around. If Dwight Anderson hits him, then it's the knockout shot that the DB dreams up. But because Talbot had that split second to turn and lower his shoulder, now he's got momentum because he's running full speed in the flat, and Anderson's standing there. So Anderson steps in, takes the worst of that one, and I think he was partially knocked out there for a second.
50th catch of the year for Andre Talbot, who's been as consistent as anybody in that Argo offense this year. Well, tonight, CFL on TSN doubleheader will continue next with Hamilton heading west to meet the BC Lions in Vancouver. Live coverage immediately following our game, and it is in TSN HD. So Anderson getting attention. Marcus Howell to the corner, 2nd and 4. Quick hitter, Bethel Johnson. And Brandon Browner, the short side corner with the tackle.
You know, Bethel Johnson, there were high expectations with him coming into the Toronto Argonaut organization and with his resume, and he just hasn't lived up to him yet. And Bethel Johnson has to be one of the playmakers for this team to move forward. Bethel Johnson comes in with a great resume, but in this game, no matter if it's south of the border or in the Canadian Football League, it's what have you done for me lately? And quite frankly, Bethel Johnson's dropped too many passes lately.
Fumbled last week, has had a couple of drops in the end zone. He lit it up in the preseason, then got hurt. Here's Dorsey straight ahead. And Dorsey has 4 more yards. Be interesting to see if Pickett and the Argos go after Marcus Howell in for Dwight Anderson on the corner.
Well, yeah, and then that's another step in the progression. I think that right now Cody Pickett's just trying to get the plays called in his second start in Canadian football, and that's really where the coaches come in, because that's where Steve Brattle can say, hey, let's go after Marcus Howell while he's in there. He hasn't had a lot of reps on defense, and communicate that to our quarterback. But right now, I think Cody Pickett's just trying to execute the offense.
Argos late getting an alignment on the field. Andre Dury just joining the offensive set, and Pickett has to take a timeout. And Dorsey
Toronto
went very slowly to the sidelines. I'm not sure if Dorsey just took himself out. If he might not have been dazed there, because Dorsey took a long time to get off, and Dury joined the offense just as they were breaking the huddle.
Well, and this gives Steve Barato a chance to talk to Cody Pickett, possibly about that matchup you talked about, and maybe if there's an opportunity to go ahead and try and go after Marcus Howell. Now, you see Dorsey still being attended to on that sideline.
Michael Clements in on that.
It is tougher, though, Chris, when you're playing the wide side corner where Marcus Howell is. It's tougher for an offense to isolate that side of the field. It's a long way away.
They've got Reggie McNeil over there matched up on 2nd and 6. They go the other way for Johnson, and Browner there, tight coverage. Johnson wants a flag, and it will go as an incomplete pass.
You know, Brandon Browner didn't really look back to the football, but it looked like Bethel Johnson put the brakes on and tried to kind of fight his way back through his body, and that's why they wanted an interference call. I don't know if did he interfere with him is the question.
That looks like interference, but not according to the officials. The Argo faithful, of course.
I'm not sure that it was.
Well, he's turned his back and he's running into him, no?
Well, he's turned his back and runs into him because Bethel Johnson puts the brakes on and come back to an underthrown throw.
I know you want charges pressed before any flag goes down. Vanderjagt puts it through, and the Argos regain the lead.
If there's no blood, there's no foul. That's how it works. But, you know, the bottom line for a lot of the pass interference, and when you think of that penalty, it is such a drastic penalty. And because it could be a 50-yarder, it could put the ball on 1-yard line if it's in the end zone like that. And it is such a drastic penalty that I always feel that the officials should err on the side of letting the players decide the outcome of the play. And unless it's blatant, unless Brandon Browner grabs and turns Bethel Johnson, unless he puts his hands over his face and screens him or face guards him, you know, I think you let them play. If there's a little contact, a little bumping and pushing, no problem. And I think if you ask any player offensively or defensively, they would concur. They would say, yes, that's the way we want it.
But if that's the bar for the night, Brandon Browner is going to have a fun night because he is a hands-on guy.
Well, he loves to play press. He loves to get up and get in the face of receivers. He will be matched up on Bethel Johnson a lot through this game. But, you know, receivers will tell you, and quarterbacks, and Matt Dunnigan will tell you in a heartbeat, that if you're going to play press before the snap of the ball, in other words, Brandon Browner is going to walk up into the receiver like Bethel Johnson, get a yard off the ball on him, that's an opportunity for a big play on offense.
Good kick by Mike Vanderjagt, and brought back by Howard Hodges, one of the up men. Gets a rare chance to get his hands on the football up to the 44. So it's been a sluggish start for these Calgary Stampeders.
Well, some changes on the Toronto Argonaut defense. Let's give you their starting lineup. Claude Harriott gets his second start on the defensive line. JB, the veteran on that group, 6 sacks for Jonathan Brown. There's a linebacking core with Adrian Mays in for Michael Fletcher. Already touched on that story. And Pete Hunter in his second start at halfback. Kenny Wheaton back at safety, missed last week.
Pete Hunter with 9 tackles and an interception last week. Here's Burris airing it out. Teo Johnson. And a good defensive play by Adrian Mays, knocking it down.
you know, and Michael Fletcher, we talked about that story. Adrian Mays comes in for Fletcher. And, you know, I believe that Michael Fletcher has a lot of football left in him. He came in probably, you know, he would tell you that he was a little heavy, but they love Adrian Mays, and why not? Adrian Mays is a tremendous athlete. He's a linebacker. He's one of those guys, you go and take a look at Adrian Mays. He is built, like this guy is solid from top to bottom, can run. He is an athletic specimen, and they want to see him on the field and what he can do.
There goes to a four-man front. Burris steps up, takes off. Kevin Ivan in pursuit, and Henry Burris steps out across midfield and has a first down run. He had 6 carries last week for 55 yards. 4 times this year he's run for over 50 in a game.
Boy, there was a chance here for a big play for the Toronto Argonauts as they came with a blitz. Pete Hunter, the halfback, came off the edge and just runs right by Henry Burris, allowing Burris to step up in the lane and take off and run. Missed opportunity for a newcomer who's auditioning right now for Don Matthews.
An 11-yard run for Burris and the initial first down for Calgary. Comes 13 minutes into the game, and here's that play action, and Burris takes off again, and we'll try and stretch out that Argo defense. Back-to-back first down runs for Henry Burris against a new-look Argo defense.
Yeah, well, you look at the changes. I mean, in week 1, Al Johnson, Michael Fletcher, Kenny Wheaton, Alondo Steiner. Kenny Wheaton was a halfback, not a safety. Alondo Steinhauer has been released. Basically, Chuck Winters is out of the plans. Don Matthews has said Michael Fletcher is out of the plans. There's the newcomers. Wheaton moves to safety. Kenny Heatley is now in at halfback. Has been for a few games. And there is Adrian Mays, who made a nice play in this series.
And also, they've gone from pretty well exclusively 3-4 to a lot of 4-3. Burris, third straight run. And he's down to the 26. So an 11-yard run, a 21-yard romp, and now 6 more for Henry Burris as he tries to kickstart this Calgary offense.
Those runs will set up intermediate throws later in the game. What I mean by that is the intermediate area in the field is where the linebackers can really help out for the Argos. The Adrian Mays, Michael O'Shea, Kevin Ivan. If they have to worry about Henry Burris running the football, they're going to keep sneaking towards the line of scrimmage, which opens up intermediate routes in behind him.
Burris with 25 touchdown passes on the year, 10 in the last 3 games. Looks to the sidelines, and Brett Ralph gets run out by Adrian Mays, but hangs on, and he'll have a gain of close to 4. It's going to be 3rd and 1.
Interesting that if it's a long one, and I know that John Hufnagel would like to see just how far it is.
Looks like from the spot,
just inside the 1.
just inside a yard. 41 seconds remaining in this first quarter.
Mentioned John Hufnagel showing the tapes of the last few years with Calgary Stampeders here in Toronto. He said, I did it the first day of the week. That's something that you don't want to harp on too much because those are bad memories. You don't want them creeping up too much. But he wanted to remind this team that, yeah, we're favored. Yeah, we're on a roll. But you have not played well in Toronto. And he said when we watched those films, you should have seen the guys come out of those meetings. They were just like, how did we play that badly in Toronto? He said, I think it was a nice wake-up call. And they're going now.
Well, again, last year it was 48-1 before they had finished 48-15. 3rd and a full yard as the big boys hunker down. And Burris plunges, flag down. Usually, because the defensive line doesn't give a full yard, and we'll get another flag. And is that Michael O'Shea with a little shot? No, Warner or Wagner. Aaron Wagner after the play with a punch that's going to get some attention from Kavis Reed.
Well, it's discipline and focus is what Kavis Reed is saying right now on the sideline, that never put your personal agenda ahead of the goal of the team. And when you take a swing at a player after the whistle is blown.
Offside. Toronto number 97. This is a 5-yard penalty. after the play was over, major foul, unnecessary roughness, Toronto number 52, half the distance to goal, first down.
When you take a swing at a player after the whistle, like Aaron Wagner did, look at the top of your screen. And there's the right hook to the head.
Jeff Pilon, the recipient. The veteran back at right tackle, and it sets it up for Calgary inside the 10-yard line. Pressure on Burris. A straight arm, and he throws it away to avoid the loss.
We talked earlier in the year how Henry Burris really worked out hard on the weights in the offseason, became stronger as a runner. But you saw a little of that strength on that play because the blitz was coming up the middle, and Henry Burris stiff-armed the defender to keep himself alive so he could throw it away and not take the loss.
Not Burris-like numbers. And in 10 starts against Toronto, just 2 300-yard games. Clock winding down in this first quarter. Second and goal from just inside the 10. Time for Burris into the end zone. And this one intercepted by the safety, Kenny Wheaton. And Wheaton will take a knee. And the drive is snuffed. Kenny Wheaton has his 4th interception of the season, and the Argo defense stiffens. Well, apparently, what a difference a week makes. Our first quarter stats brought to you by Tim Hortons. Always fresh, always.
Well, the Toronto Argonaut defense has really stepped it up in that first quarter compared to a week ago. Just 3 first downs for the Calgary, or limited first downs for the Calgary Stampeders in their time of possession. Cody Pickett has won that battle between the rookie in his second start, Cody Pickett, and Henry Burris, the veteran.
And speaking of Pickett, Kenny Wheaton did just that off Henry Burris in the end zone to keep the momentum in favor of the Argos.
Yeah, he got caught actually a little shallow, but he actually did recover in time. A little help from Byron Parker, but that was a late throw by Henry Burris, who made a real good decision the play before to throw it out of bounds. But they're in a dogfight, and that's what John Huffnagel said would happen.
Apparently, the Stamps were 9.5-point favorites. If you follow that, it's been a much different game than a lot of people expected so far.
So it mentioned Kenny Wheaton being a little shallow on the play. You're going to see Kenny Wheaton get caught here. He's a little shallow. Then he realizes he's got to get some depth there right in the middle of your screen. Now he turns. Watch Byron Parker's lead. Helps him out. Buys him some time.
Now Cody Pickett slings it. And it's Bethel Johnson, the intended target. Dwayne Carpenter picked it off on the sidelines. And that's bad news for the Stamps as Wes Lysak's on the limp.
Let's go right back, and that you can see the throw a little bit late because there's a lot of coverage down there for the Toronto Argonauts. Byron Parker buying some time, and you're right, that's not good news for Calgary at the other end. Their safety, Argo safety gets a pick, and the Calgary safety's gone to the locker room.
And Marcus Howell becomes the jack of all trades. Dwight Anderson back on the corner. Howell, there's another drop by Johnson, but it looked like that crosser was opening up for him.
And that's what I'm talking about. And Bethel Johnson will go back, and, you know, he's basically saying to Cody Pickett, take a little off this on the slant route, but that's not his job. His job is catch the football. He was open, and he had some running room because he had the momentum going in. Look at the middle of that field, wide open.
Yeah, that's not a Michael Bishop fastball either.
No, not really.
So Marcus Howell, corner, safety, punt returner. Awaiting at the 40-yard line. Mike Vanderjack to punt.
Open receiver high there, too.
It's Howell at the 38, and the Argos didn't give 5. Howell brought down quickly, but that'll be a 15-yard penalty against Toronto. CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by Ramada Worldwide. You do your thing, leave the rest to us.
Calgary Stampeders offensively have to start leaving some of it for Joffrey Reynolds.
Well, they start at the 54. It was a 15-yard, no yards. Andre Dury was in too tight on Marcus Howell. There's Joffrey Reynolds. Pitch right side, nothing doing. As he swamped Claude Harriott, the newcomer defensive end, in on the stop.
But the importance of Joffrey Reynolds, you know, we have to emphasize that. You know, you've heard the term self-scouting, and it happens during the week of practice, but it also happens in game. Just 2 touches now, 2 running plays for Joffrey Reynolds. Basically all the rushing yards for Calgary from Henry Burris, and that's after a quarter of play. So no balance so far in the Calgary offense.
Last week, 112 yards for Reynolds, over 1,000 for the 4th straight year. Out of the backfield, and Nick Lewis with a drop pass delivered behind Lewis. And the Stamps offense still hasn't gained full traction.
Remember, Joffrey Reynolds coming off a game where he had 112 yards rushing last week versus the Toronto Argonauts on 12 carries. He's 2nd in the league rushing the football, just behind Wes Cates. And the balance in the offense is crucial, not to mention playing against the Toronto Argonauts, who are the worst team in the league against the run.
Stamps ranked number 2 in rushing yards. Bethel Johnson back to accept the Dale's punt, not Dorsey. And at the 14, Johnson. John Cornish leading the way downfield. And Bethel Johnson not going very far. Let's join Claude Fagg.
Well, Chris, Dominic Dorsey got hurt earlier in the game, and at first it looked like it was an ankle sprain, a high ankle sprain. He tried to go back. He's come back off again. This time they've iced the knee just below the knee, just above the shin. Either way, his left leg is up and being rested right now, and it looks like he's been told to shut it down. He's had a lot of comfort here, including Pinball Clemens coming over to see him, but it looks like Dominic Dorsey's being shut down for now.
And what a huge percentage of the Argos' production now is on the bench without Dominic Dorsey. There's Tyler Ebell, his roommate, and a guy who was designated to be the running back here in Toronto this year after being acquired from Edmonton in a trade, but tearing his Achilles tendon in the preseason.
Well, and that puts that much more pressure, Chris, on Cody Pickett. And when you have to, now you've lost a big part of your running game. And you know the Calgary Stampeders know that Dominic Dorsey's not back in either. So more pressure on Cody Pickett, the quarterback, now to work the football through the air.
Start at their own 16. Andre Dury, the York product. It's his game now, tailback, short gain. Dury, who had some severe knee problems at York University, and it didn't look like his football career would be able to continue at the pro level, and somehow able to persevere through a number of operations and get into the lineup, and now a big chance for him here with Dorsey on the sideline.
Well, and the question is not can he run the ball, because he is capable of running the football when asked, but will he be able to pick up the blitzes and stunts in the passing game?
3 for Dury, 2nd and 7. 2 backs in. And Pickett pulls it down. And Cody Pickett up to the 24 will come up a couple of yards short.
And Andre Dury comes out of the backfield there and actually picks up a block for Cody Pickett as he scrambles up through the middle. Should be close to that, well, about a yard short, as you mentioned, Chris. Here he is here. And the question is, will he be able to read whether or not it's blitz? Will he be able to pick it up if he has to? He's releasing here, but as he comes out, he gets a little block right there to help Cody Pickett pick up a few more yards.
Juwan Simpson helped bring him down. Pickett appealing for the face mask call. Marcus Howell back to accept the Vanderjagt punt. Bert Dales had a big edge on Vanderjagt in the punting department last week at McMahon. And Vanderjagt, oh boy, he's going to get caught, drops the football. get to Mike Vanderjagt before he can kick the football. And it's a touchdown for the newcomer, Keon Raymond.
You know, with the way that Mike Vanderjagt walked out there and the way he looked down the field to see what was happening coverage-wise, I think he saw he had an open receiver. On the last kick, the wide receiver or the wide cover man on the play was left open by Calgary deliberately. They baited him into trying that, and then they couldn't execute it. The Toronto Argonauts try and call a fake. They can't execute it.
Brandon Smith tied up Vanderjagt.
Yeah, baby.
Keon Raymond picks up the ball.
Welcome. What it is.
And a baffling play on special teams for the Argos.
St. Louis, man.
Did he want to throw it? And,
Yes, he
and
did.
the receiver didn't
know
look
it.
back.
Receiver didn't know it. It was almost like half the team knew the fake was on and half didn't, because the way Vanderjagt rolled out clearly looked like he wasn't hesitating. And before he took the snap, he looked at the coverage. He was reading it like a quarterback would.
But he had no receiver available. And the Calgary Stampeders make the pay and take the lead.
Jeez, we want to save the question. I will give a shot.
You can see out on the right side, just to the right of your picture here, past that X, is Dwight Anderson. And Dwight Anderson is supposed to be covering the wide cover man for the Argos, and he leaves him open. Vanderjagt thinks that he is going to be now an intended receiver. The problem was, the receiver didn't know he was a receiver. He was covering the kick.
But a huge error cost the Argos 7 and the lead. And it's 10-6 Calgary in a game where the Argos had been the better team.
Well, and the key to an upset, and an Argo win here tonight would be an upset. And the key to an upset is to get a good start and get that early lead and then hang on.
You saw Vanderjagt talking with Delroy Clark. And I believe it was Clark who was the man who hit it straight downfield. And may have been the designated receiver. Johnson on the return up across the 40. And the Argos back to work on offense, now trailing by 4.
You know, and I wonder about the decision too. And if that was a called fake, and it did look like a called fake. I mean, the way Vanderjagt came out of there, it looked like a called fake. That's a gutsy play. I mean, I know that Don Matthews has a reputation throughout his coaching career for playing on the edge and and faking things like that.
But inside your 20?
Yeah, but that's real gutsy inside your 20. And there's Marcelo Simmons, the special teams coach.
Pickett, little pump and go down the sidelines, and that one almost picked off. Anderson got his hands on it. Reggie McNeil was the intended target. So they go after Anderson, who was out in the first quarter after being shaken up on a collision with Andre Talbot.
This secondary for the Calgary Stampeders is really coming together of late. This is a group that's very young across the board. Wes Lysak went to the locker room. That's their veteran of 6 years. Beyond that, they're 2-year guys. Dwight Anderson is one of those guys. 1 year in Calgary, 2 years in the league. But they are coming together and making plays.
Extra DB in on 2nd and 10. Flag down. Pass complete. Arlen Bruce dropped at the Calgary 51-yard line, but there is a penalty marker on the play.
You see how Arlen Bruce came back to the football there?
Offside. Calgary number 96. That penalty's declined. First down.
Miguel Robitaille, the defensive tackle offside, so the catch by Bruce stands, and it's a 19-yard gain.
There he is there, and he's going to just come down and then just curl in. But it's the end of the play that's important for Arlen Bruce, number 5. Watch, now he's run his curl. Now watch him take another 4 or 5 steps back towards the football, separate from the defender, and come up with a catch.
Bruce with 3 catches tonight already, had just 2 in Calgary. Jeff Johnson, the fullback, pounds it down to the 44.
Now there's a guy that they can lean on if they have to in a little bit of a running game, because, you know, in his career, Jeff Johnson has had to step in when there's been injuries. And I've often felt I'd like to see them give him an opportunity as a starter. As a feature back, maybe not an every down guy, but I think Jeff Johnson's very capable of putting together that 6-7 yard average.
2nd and 4. Catch made by PK Sam, brought down at the 41, and that's close to the first down. And he was dragged down by the active Sam linebacker Shannon James.
You know, this team has struggled and struggled offensively for a couple of years, and what's been overlooked at times is that they've had one of the weakest offensive lines in the Canadian Football League, and you just can't sugarcoat. Doesn't matter who was playing quarterback. They have played a lot better in this game tonight. No sacks on Cody Pickett. He is standing in that pocket. He's not like he's scrambling around or full rollouts. He is back there in the pocket, and that O-line with Mark DeWitt, a newcomer, John Woodard coming over from the Hamilton Tiger Cats, playing better tonight, and they've got to improve up front.
Ryan Ramsey, a first-year starter at right tackle. No doubt that has been a cause for concern. Jude St. John, the veteran, not in the lineup, but Andrew Green is with the Argos. Took 15 or 20 reps last week, expected to see action, double reverse. And coming around is Arlen Bruce, gets a block, and gets jolted out, close to another Argo first down. Well, this offensive package has been a little more interesting tonight than in the past few games.
Well, and a little block there from Cody Pickett, and good for him because it allowed Arlen Bruce a little bit more room, because they are trying to mix things up. Double reverse, Andre Talbot one direction, and watch Cody Pickett. He's out there open, and there, that little chip.
Just enough on Bannister. They came up just short. And now Brian Crawford straight ahead, and Crawford breaks a tackle and has a first down. He's pumped up, the Queens grad, after an impressive, thorough Gales win over the Western Mustangs today.
And there is, folks, your Queens update.
Yes.
For the weekend.
Whether you wanted it or not.
But, you know, guys like Brian Crawford, I mean, you look at Saskatchewan, Wes Cates goes down, Stu Ford steps in. You know, there are Canadian running backs that can get it done if they get the opportunity.
Argo State 2 back with Jeff Johnson and Crawford. First down, Pickett looking for Johnson, and he was tied up again with Browner. A little hand fight, and Browner wasn't letting him by.
Well, you know, both are pushing and shoving. Bethel Johnson is pushing on Browner to try and get the separation, and a defensive back is taught to, when the receiver pushes, you pull. So a subtle little pull to Johnson to get him closer, and Browner gets away with it, and he should. I mean, that's not interference when there's one push and one pull.
So the 8th play of the drive. 2nd and 10. At the Calgary 22. 5 receivers. Johnson stays in the block. Here comes pressure. Pick it over the middle. Intended for PK Sam, and there are flags. They come late. Sam looked around, and the flags thrown in the secondary.
Yeah, the flag was in the secondary. I don't think it was a late hit. I believe it was Shannon James coming on the blitz from the outside, and basically Cody Pickett was just ducking for cover as he delivered that ball over the middle to PK Sam. But it looks like it's going against the Calgary Stampeders.
Pass interference. Calgary, number 88. First down.
Well, Marcus Howell, and again Howell in with Wes Lysak out. In training camp, they were working on Howell, trying to convert him to the corner. Now he's got a new spot to fill.
A little early contact. Came up and put the hit on Sam a little bit early before the ball arrived, and that is pass interference because it disrupts the receiver enough to throw him off his route.
So the Winnipeg native Marcus Howell on the hot seat, replacing Lysak. Here's Crawford, right side. Brian Crawford to the goal line. Touchdown. Good tough run for the veteran Crawford.
Now maybe Queens isn't all that bad. That was a tough run, and good for Brian Crawford because you saw a little bit of two things there. Change of direction, some acceleration. Watch how he gets the ball, and he'll hesitate, and he'll be patient. Most young running backs, when they get limited reps, will try and just run it in there and end up running into the pile. But Crawford was patient. He waited for a little crease to open, then accelerated through it and showed his toughness at the end of that. Nice run.
9-yard touchdown run. And the Argos regain the lead in double figures for the first time in 3 weeks. And it's 13-10 Argos. Closed captioning of the CFL on TSN is brought to you by Sport Check. When you're in the zone, time almost stands still. Getting into the zone begins with Sport Check. Sport Check, the power of sport. Second rushing touchdown of the year for Brian Crawford. And the Argos regain the lead, 13-10. Summers, and another good Summers kick return up to the 48.
You know, we had just talked about the offensive line for the Toronto Argonauts and how they've played a better game so far tonight than they did last week. Watch the block here and the kick out by Mark DeWitt, number 53. The left guard starts out there. Now look at him pull. He pulls outside. There's the nice block. That seals it, and that opens up the running lane right through there for Brian Crawford. He's patient, waits for that block to develop, and then a little toughness at the end of that run.
He had a touchdown in his hometown of Hamilton on Labor Day. And a second touchdown tonight. Joffrey Reynolds. And Reynolds has the door slammed in his face by the newcomer, Walter Curry. 6'3", 310, the new defensive tackle.
Pretty good drive from Cody Pickett, and he got his running game. He got a little Jeff Johnson involved. Brian Crawford finishes it off with this really good run at the end of that, and see how he takes on the hit, rolls off into the end zone. But a nice drive orchestrated there by Cody Pickett when the Argos this season, when faced adversity, are usually 2 and out.
10-play, 70-yard drive. Second, almost 11 for Burris. Crossing pattern. Kenyon Rambo and Willie Kyle will wrap him and take him down at the 50-yard line. And just 2 or 3 in this Calgary offense still hasn't found its game.
You know, when you have a team down and you coming in and the team has been struggling, and John Hufnagel knows better than anybody. He used to play as well. So he knows when a team has been struggling, you start to give them a little life. They start to believe a little bit, and then you're in for a dogfight for 60 minutes.
Well, this is certainly his worst fear. Making it look easy a week ago.
Because after the botched fake attempt, Calgary Stampeders scored on special teams. The Argos could have gone in the tank there.
Johnson awaits. Burke deals the punt. Over 53-yard average last week, and Johnson drops it in the end zone. Picks it up and will run out to the 5. There is a marker down. Are they going to call the no yards on Calgary? Let's wait for the official.
The no yards would change it anyway. I wasn't sure if Bethel Johnson came out of the end zone, then went back in after to get the fumble.
And there's a little inexperience because often the return.
4 yards. Calgary number 27, 15-yard penalty, first down.
That's the gunner, Brandon Browner. But often the returner is told to, if it's inside the 10, to let it bounce into the end zone.
Without question. That's the rule. If the ball is over your head or high around the inside the 10-yard line, let it go through, give up the single. Now Brandon Browner called on the no yard, and that's right where he has the ball. Very, very close there.
I'm not sure it is no yards. Looked like he had 5. Little mix up there. Pickett and Jeff Johnson miscommunicate.
Yeah.
And Pickett taken down back at the 10.
That was a zig when you should have zagged. You're going strong side instead of weak side, and that's just the inexperience and the lack of reps from Jeff Johnson, who was supposed to slide to the left side of that formation and take that handoff.
And here's an offense that is being retooled. Some newcomers in, and how many reps did Jeff Johnson get? Dominic Dorsey out of the game, and now they have to lean on people like Johnson, Dury, and Crawford. 2nd and 16. Pressure. That ball hopped into the hands of Arlen Bruce, incomplete.
Well, it hopped, and I also thought it might have been a lateral.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of those passes to Bruce that look close to a lateral, and those are dangerous.
Because if it hops and is a lateral, then it's not incomplete and not whistle dead. Cody Pickett standing right there on the 5-yard line. Okay, he throws it at the 5. Now let's watch, follow that ball. Where does it touch? Touch just behind the 5-yard line.
That is a lateral, and in this case,
he hung on.
Bruce should have been able to pick it up and run.
That's right. It was blown dead. He could have run, number 1, and he did hang on. If he drops that, it's a live ball.
Yes, the other way. The last couple of weeks, we've seen Pickett throw that pass 3 or 4 times to Bruce, and they are very close to laterals and not forward passes. And Steve Barato, who works with Pickett in the offseason in Boise, has some stern words on the sidelines, and the Argos are going to concede the safety as Vanderjagt steps out. Under 4 minutes remaining in the first half, and it's now a 1-point game. Well, the CFL on TSN continues tomorrow. The Saskatchewan Roughriders head into Montreal to take on the first-place Alouettes in an East-West battle. Live coverage begins at 1 Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific, available on TSN HD.
Looks like Avon Coburn back for that game for the Montreal Alouettes.
East has won 5 of 21 matchups against the West.
Michael Bishop back in the saddle for Saskatchewan after the early hook a week ago. Darian Durant.
Rough Riders trying to bounce back, and boy, did those Alouettes look good in their last start at home against the Edmonton Eskimos.
Yeah, well, they're very close to locking up that Eastern Division. A couple of wins here, and they could cruise down the stretch and host that Eastern final. Not that they want to cruise. No one wants to cruise.
You know, some people thought Calgary might cruise here.
Yeah, and that's why you play the game. With Steve Barato, a little smile now with Cody Pickett, but it was quite heated. You know, the pressure when you have a change at the head coach's position is not just with the players. The pressure is on the entire coaching staff because everyone is being evaluated on every decision and every play by Don Matthews. And he will make changes. We've seen that in his past without question. He will not hesitate to make changes, and it doesn't matter who you are.
Ball bouncing down to Summers at the 15. And he runs it back across the 35-yard line.
You know, Adam Rita had talked as a longtime friend of Don Matthews, had talked to him and got the indication that Don Matthews was looking to get back into coaching. And when the Toronto Argonauts lost in Montreal, and that was really the last straw for Rich Stubler, talked to the ownership, and Don Matthews is hired back in Toronto. They go back. And Don Matthews is here to shake it up, but not just to shake it up, almost to blow it up. And this team is going to go through more changes before it's over. You can guarantee that.
Fake to Reynolds and brought down. That's a big play by the newcomer Claude Harriott, who bit on the fake and still made the play. But there is a penalty marker, I believe, on the play.
Let's take a look at the penalty. But first of all, Claude Harriott, here's a guy that was with the Detroit Lions, signed in September. One of the newcomers we're talking about. Starts with Willie Pyle containing Burris and flushing him back into the arms of Claude Harriott.
Big play, and there was no penalty marker. So it's a loss. 3, 2nd and 13. Final play before the 3-minute warning. They set up the screen. Reynolds, or Joffrey Reynolds, up to midfield, has a first down. And a penalty marker back at the line of scrimmage.
I love the call from George Cortez.
We'll sort out the penalty when we come back to give them the 3-minute warning to the benches. .241 remaining in the first half, and then we'll check in with the guys wrote at the half. Al Climy is after celebrating his 40th birthday last night.
Man, that's old. You're getting up there now.
15-yard unnecessary roughness, and they rough it up on Burris, taken down as he was delivering the football incomplete.
Let's go back to that screenplay that got the Calgary Stampeders out of this hole along with the penalty. Look at Ivan here and Adrian Mays there. Mays is going to go outside on a blitz, and Ivan is going to drop in pass coverage. What does that open up? It opens up the middle for a little screen pass to Joffrey Reynolds. No linebackers there. Reynolds sees it, picks it up. Nice play call by George Cortez. Now they're going to see get some points out of it.
2nd and 10 at the Argo 40-yard line. Burris with time, guns over the middle, incomplete. Looking for Rambo, who's looking for a penalty, and Willie Middlebrooks in coverage.
The other thing, the defense looks like it's making those adjustments. This is the defense for the Toronto Argonauts that have gone through all kinds of changes in personnel this year. But beyond that, an entire scheme has changed. I mean, Rich Stubler's defense from the last couple of years has been that 3-down lineman, 4 linebackers, and then a secondary that plays what you can call it match coverage or different types of. Cavers Reed has got a different style of defense going right now, and they're starting to get used to it and playing better.
So Sandro DeAngelis to attempt a 47-yarder. And Bethel Johnson coming out of the end zone. Has a little room, but boy, that's a good play by Jawan Simpson to cut him down at the 15-yard line. A rare DeAngelis miss, and it remains a 1-point Argo lead. And coming up at halftime, we'll have our first of the Wendy's Kick for a Million kickdowns. Brian McLean of Sackville, New Brunswick, and Omar Kassim of Kitchener are going to kick off.
Who you got?
I like Omar.
Okay.
See, we've got
Omar on the left, so I got number 1.
Now, Omar apparently knows Luka Kanji, which is why I'm leaning Omar's way.
Yeah, you did some scouting.
A little bit of scouting.
Hold on.
Got to do your homework. Here's Pickett, and that one sails high as Bethel Johnson and Brandon Browner continue to go grill to grill.
I know the Calgary Stampeders just missed a field goal, but they do have an opportunity here. This is an important 2nd down because Cody Pickett backed up where he is. The Argos would almost have to give up another safety. And if you're Chris Jones, likely send the house here on Cody Pickett.
I haven't seen that as much as we expected. And it is a 4-man rush, but there is pressure, and down he goes. Miguel Robide has the sack, 2nd consecutive week he's posted one, and that's his 4th sack of the year.
We have to look at the Chris Jones defense. He's got 1 over here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the line. Now what is he going to do? Is he going to send all 6? Cody Pickett's not sure. He's looking at him thinking they may send. Nope, they're only sending 4. Well, maybe I have a little more time. And then Miguel Robide, he makes his play. He beats his man to the quarterback.
First time they get to Pickett. Check that 2nd sack for Chris Jones's crew.
So you disguise the blitz, send 4, and you win a one-on-one battle, and down goes the quarterback. And now it looks like the Argos, they may want to punt it out because of the time on the clock, but either way, Calgary either gets 2 now or field position for another field goal almost automatically.
So 2 consecutive series for the Argos offense that starts deep and doesn't get anywhere. And quickly, Vanderjagt concedes the safety.
Now, if Toronto just hypothetically had to kick the ball off from the 10-yard line right now, would that decision to just give up the safety be that automatic for Don Matthews?
Yeah, that's interesting. That will be likely talked about in the offseason. I am not a fan of kickers running around in the end zone to kill time, but if there ever was a time, would it not been there? 2 minutes to go. Do you not try and take a little time off the clock? Maybe after what happened on.
No, you're right. Without question. I mean, if you and Mike Vanderjagt on the last safety did that, and then on this safety didn't.
So there's 2 minutes even remaining.
By the way, I agree 100% with you on watching a kicker run
that's
in the
not my favorite play.
Not my favorite either.
Probably not Mike Vanderjagt's either.
No, and it's sort of like, to me, in the National Football League, where they punt the football and then everyone runs away from it and they just down the ball. That is also, to me, one of the worst plays in football, because you get all these huge guys watching the ball roll and roll, huddled around it, roll, and then they touch it. Kind of a wasted down, if you ask me. But it's the same as that kicker running around in the end zone. It's not very pretty.
Now, in fairness, Mike probably would have only taken, at the most, another 10 seconds off, but it might have been a play or two. We'll see. Boots it downfield, and Summers from his 15. Kick cover team better this time as they drop Demetrius Summers at the 30. The real Henry Burris has not arrived at Rogers Center tonight yet.
Well, just shy of 300 last week, 408 in the win versus Montreal. And Henry Burris, 300 yards the week before that.
It's not often that Henry Burris plays 28 minutes of football and has more rushing yards than passing yards.
Yeah.
But that's the case here. 38 on the ground and only 34 in the air.
And the difference tonight has been that the Toronto Argonauts on first down have been dynamite on defense.
And the Argos in a 40 defense. Burris a pump. He's looking big. And nothing there. Kenyon Rambo was enveloped by the corner, Willie Middlebrooks.
And this has been the situation for Henry Burris. Look at his last 3 games. An average, 324 yards, just shy of 60%. Just one mistake, one interception. To 10 touchdowns. Tremendous touchdown interception ratio. That's how well he's been playing. And every game that he's been in, the team has been in. Now they're still in this one, of course, but this is second and long again, and this is what he's faced in the first half. Second and long is tough.
Second and 10. Argos blitzing. Burris with the completion.
Cross linebacker.
And Nick Lewis has the catch. And it will be marked about a yard short of the first down. Lewis appealing for a better spot. They're marking him right at the 40. He had to get to the 41. And we'll get an interesting decision from John Hupnagel.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're going to take a look and measure this, because they are going to bring the sticks out. It was deceiving, because it looked like the 41 or just inside it, the first down marker, and the ball just shy of the 40. So it's sort of inside that yard again. Well, there you go.
Full yard. Let's take a look at where Nick Lewis's forward progress was.
Great spot.
Pile.
That's a great spot. And where his feet were is where he gets forward progress when he gets hit, unless he steps back on his own, and he doesn't. And that is just shy of the 40 yards, which is exactly where the ball has been placed.
So John Hupnagel going to go for it. Second time of the game he's gone third down. This a little bit longer, I think. Last time it was Burris, quarterback sneak. It is again, straight ahead. Not much. Not much.
I don't know.
And now the spot is critical.
Michael O'Shea got over the top of that pile and really turned Burris's body. So when he was fighting, he was sort of fighting along the line of scrimmage rather than north-south. You see O'Shea come over. There's over the top, and see how he turns him sideways. Not sure. It depends on where that foot came down for the official. They did put it well over that 40-yard line.
Stamps seem confident they've got it. You can see Argos surveying down the line. Not sure. And this is going to be a chain link or two, one way or the other. Nope, they've got it. And by half a football. With 90 seconds remaining in the opening half.
Which is time. Which is time. You know, the players that we haven't heard much from. Kenyon Rambo. Jermaine Copeland.
Just the 6th first down of the opening half of the Stamps. Burris drops it off. Reynolds, Michael O'Shea brings him down. O'Shea playing in his 200th game as an Argo tonight.
Henry Burris will call the plays on the line of scrimmage, try and get as many downs in as he can. See if he can't get the football team into at least field goal range.
8 for Joffrey Reynolds. 2nd and 2. Reynolds on the ground. And Reynolds has a first down close to midfield.
And I have to give Willie Middlebrook some credit out there on the corner, because we haven't talked about Kenyon Rambo at all. 1,000-yard receiver coming into this game. Over 60 catches, and he's been matched up on Willie Middlebrooks tonight. And we haven't talked about Kenyon Rambo. And for DB, when you're not talking about him, is a good thing. For receiver, not so much.
Nick Lewis has been quiet. Jermaine Copeland has not been a target yet. Here's Ryan Thelwell with a catch, and closing quickly on him, Byron Parker to wrap him and toss him down. Forward progress is the Argo 51 and a gain of close to 5.
Thelwell reloads, has to go all the way across the formation and get back out to the wide side of the field as he gets the call.
They'll make it 4, 2nd and 6. And we're inside a minute to go. Clock running. And Burris under pressure, got a block. Trying to get outside. Flag down. I think this is Joffrey Reynolds, who may have grabbed one of the Argo defensive linemen to help spring Burris.
Yeah, and it was just at the end of the play, and Joffrey Reynolds, he grabbed. He's gonna be allowed. The official was gonna let this one go, and then he held on that split second too long, just as Burris got the corner. I'm sure that will be the call.
Holding Calgary number 21. Foul occurred before yards were gained. It will be a 10-yard penalty. Still 2nd down.
Just to the right of your screen is Joffrey Reynolds, and there's the hold right there.
On the newcomer, Claude Harriott, out of Pitt. Negates a potential first down run. 40 seconds remaining, and it sets up 2nd and 16 back at the Stampeder 49. Johnson at end, putting some heat on. Burris steps up, gunning it deep. There's Jermaine Copeland, and Copeland got him! A remarkable catch for a touchdown for Jermaine Copeland,
who ended up double covered on the play by Pete Hunter and Willie Middlebrooks. And they are both stunned that somehow Jermaine Copeland came up with this catch, because they were in perfect position.
61 yards, Burris to Copeland. Number 80's biggest play of the season.
You can't cover a receiver any better, and somehow Copeland rips that away from Pete Hunter.
How we do it, baby? How we do it, baby? Huh? Touchdown. They should have been 6. It is. No one touchdown.
Well, they're not ruling touchdown. They're ruling down at the 1, and the challenge flag is out.
Well, did anyone touch him when he was down? That's the question, because didn't Jermaine Copeland roll into the end zone?
Stampeders were celebrating, but they mark it at the 1, and now John Hupnagel wants them to take another look.
Yeah, well, let's take a look, because I don't think anyone touched him down by contact. Catches the ball.
Calgary is challenging the ruling on the field of a completed pass and down by contact at the 1-yard line. We'll review the play.
Looks like a touchdown, doesn't it?
Well, Pete Hunter reached for the football. He might have grazed his shoulder pad as he's reaching, but that has not been called down by contact at all. And you can see Copeland crosses the line with the football as he hits the ground. I think that's a touchdown. I mean, he's not touched. What a catch.
61 yards, and suddenly the Stampeders offense comes to life with 30 seconds remaining in the opening half. Jermaine did not have a catch last week against the Argos, and That's his first tonight, but it's the biggest one of the night.
Well, Henry Burris trusts in Jermaine
Hold it down,
Copeland.
baby. It's a turnaround. Give God some praise.
Well, a couple weeks ago, he was talking about the window. That big window. You get it near Copeland, somehow he's going to pull it in.
Well, you can't cover him any better. I mean, Pete Hunter's on inside position. Willie Middlebrooks, who we just talked about having a good first half, is on the outside shoulder. It's just amazing that Jermaine Copeland comes up with that catch. And I don't think there was any touch on Copeland. I mean, it looked to me that Pete Hunter went for the football, may have grazed him a little bit, but he was going for the football, and then Copeland hit the ground and just kind of rolled right into the end zone.
Andre Proulx taking a long look at this.
One more look.
The 29, the arms on him before the ball arrives.
And then the ball arrives. No touch there, no touch there. Touchdown. That's touchdown. You're right, though. Middlebrooks does touch him just before the ball arrives, then doesn't touch him after it.
And you being a DB, I'm not sure they're going to like watching that film over and over again, Middlebrooks and Hunter.
No, that's why they both looked at each other stunned that that ball got in there and that Copeland found a way to come up with it, because, you know, Middlebrooks knew he had that inside help from Pete Hunter.
Upon review, the ruling on the field stands. It will be Calgary's ball at the 1-yard line. First down.
That's one I don't get. And neither does the Stampeder bench.
I don't get it either, because I don't see touchdown by contact at all in that play. But I'll tell you one thing, that instant replay is still at times left to interpretation. But I don't see down by contact there at all.
Well, the silver lining for Calgary, they've got it on the one. We have seen some goal line stands here. Theo Johnson's in the backfield with Reynolds. Second man through Reynolds, and he has the major score, but that should have been Jermaine Copeland's touchdown.
Well, you know, they say in hockey that the helper is just as important as the goal.
Yeah, that was a good first assist.
Yeah, it's a good first assist by Jermaine Copeland. Tremendous play for Copeland in double coverage, and then finished off right here after a long delay, and one that I wonder a little bit about, but bottom line is the result is the same. Calgary touchdown.
You know he makes the best plays downfield. I don't give a damn what you say.
So the 9th touchdown on the ground for Joffrey Reynolds, his 10th of the season. DeAngelis pounds the extra point through, 21 seconds remaining.
2-on-1, he catches the run.
And it's an 8-point Stampeder lead.
I will guarantee you this. Tom Higgins is here tonight, and I'll find him at halftime.
3-on-1, he catches the run.
Because, you know, and the only reason I say that is because, okay, it's up to interpretation of the official, and Andre Proulx felt that he was touched it somehow, or maybe that Hunter, when he grazed him as he's going for the ball, constitutes down by contact. I'm sure that's probably what the explanation will be. The reason I want to ask, though, is because if that's the last play of the game,
He was ahead by like 3
and
yards.
they're down by 4,
He slowed
you know,
down.
Could have been the last play of the half.
that's what I'm saying. So, you know, that kind of play could become a game winner. And then so we'll get an interpretation on that. But again, oftentimes these reviews will come down in the interpretation of the official. I just don't see any touch, and you have to be touched. Like Copeland could get up and keep running. If he was in the middle of the field, he could get up and keep running there.
Somebody wants Jermaine on the phone. Maybe Tom Higgins.
You know, and the other thing is Commissioner Mark Cohen was in Winnipeg last night. The quick discussion I had with him is that there is a movement that, like in the National Hockey League, that there will be sort of a mission control as early as next year, that the league is moving to review plays from a central location, a war room, like in
So the Governors would have to authorize that. Bethel Johnson on this return. Bethel Johnson with a good return. And Johnson cut down by Sandro DeAngelis. That brings up a story. Tony Judge in his book, one of his regrets was early in his career as head coach in Indianapolis, he kicked off in the final seconds of a half against the New England Patriots and Bethel Johnson, who returned it for a touchdown. He said he learned a lesson there, not to put it in the hands of a playmaker that late in the half, and Bethel Johnson made this late return interesting.
Well, and that's why I've talked about the expectations of Bethel Johnson. I mean, that's the type of big play that I think everyone is expected to see and really hasn't that much.
And with 12 seconds remaining in the half, Bethel Johnson takes a knee. There is time for a play and maybe two to get in field goal range, and they only need about, well, less than 15 yards to get into Vanderjagt range. So a big, important return by Johnson, who was shaken up.
Well, you know, they have to get that intermediate play, that 10 to 15 yarder, to give Mike Vanderjagt a real chance at it, which is an intermediate play is going to take 3 to 7 seconds, somewhere in there, depending on what kind of route Cody Pickett has called for his receivers. And it looks like, if I were to read hand signals from Steve Barato, some sort of in route, crossing route.
Well, Barato looked like he's signaling one way. The head coach is signaling the other, and maybe they're just talking about directions home tonight.
But there is time.
A dozen seconds on the clock. There goes from their own 54, and there's Talbot crunched again, this time by Brandon Browder. He's met both corners up close and personal, and a late flag tossed. And is this going to be taunting?
Well, taunting by Brandon Browner, or will it be when Andre Talbot threw the football? I think he just sort of tossed it, but you know, sometimes it's the retaliation.
Objectionable conduct. Toronto number 9, 10-yard penalty. That penalty is enforced from the end of the play. It will be second down.
And with 7 seconds left, Talbot had got them to the 48, which would have been a 55-yard attempt by Vanderjagt.
Well, there's no question after this big hit, Brandon Browner got up and said something to Talbot, and I know that's really nothing, but it is unsportsmanlike to throw the football, and the officials will often get the retaliation. Just ask Robbie Bryant last night. Came in late in the big fight and got thrown out.
Quick hitter over the middle. PK Sam got to get down. 1 second on the clock. They let the clock run out. And let's see if the officials. Pickett saying there should have been a second left, and I don't think he's wrong. Calgary trying to get off the field as if time had run out, and now Andre Proulx wants to check with the timekeeper, and I think they're going to put a second back on the clock.
There was 1 second left on the clock.
Now that's going to give the Argos a shot at a 51-yard field goal, but Sam didn't hit the deck quickly, and it almost cost them.
To read 1 second.
I know John Huffnagel won't like this, but I think it's the right call by Andre Proulx. I think he heard the whistle and looked at the clock right away. I saw him, and there was 1 second left. This is the correct call. It gives the Argonauts a chance at a long field goal attempt. Now remember, long field goals can be returned if missed. Got offensive linemen covering. It's a little more pressure on Mike Vanderjagt.
2 for 6 outside the 50 this year.
He's punting it.
So they're not going to try a long field goal, and this is surprising.
I guess you're going to try for a single.
And Marcus Howell to bring it out, and he just does get out. So they were trying to make it a 7-point game, and apparently it was out of Vanderjagt range. So an interesting finish to an opening half. Welcome back to Rogers Centre, TSN, the exclusive broadcaster of the Canadian Football League and proud home of the 2008 Grey Cup game. It's the Stampeders by 8 in an interesting first half. Stamps have to be considered fortunate because that was one of their poorest first halves offensively, and still an 8-point lead.
Yeah, the Toronto defense played a very good first half, maybe their best first half of the season. I thought Cody Pickett played well, and yet they're still down. A couple of miscues, one on the special teams when Mike Vanderdat tried to fake a punt, fumbled into the end zone. Cost them some points, and then the big catch by Jermaine Copeland for Calgary right at the end. The Calgary Stampeders the lead. It was actually Joffrey Reynolds got the touchdown, but Copeland down to the 1-yard line.
We thought it was a 61-yard touchdown catch by Jermaine Copeland. Instead, it's a 60-yard grab to the 1.
Yeah, this one was challenged, and Andre Proulx, the official, felt that he was at some point touched. At the very least, the ruling was he was down by the 1 and didn't see enough to overturn that ruling. It didn't matter because Joffrey Reynolds finished that drive in the very next play.
We were also surprised that the Argonauts did not attempt the 51-yard field goal. Fake reverse on the kickoff, and Summers across the 35-yard line. Well, let's check the quarterback's stats through a half. Largely bolstered on the left side by that last Copeland catch.
Yeah, and that's the second start for Cody Pickett, and he has the exact same amount of yardage as the veteran Henry Burris. So obviously not Burris's best half of football, but you have to give credit to the Argonaut defense. I thought Cody Pickett looked pretty good in that pocket for being his second start.
Stamps start double tight ends, and Reynolds alone back and out in the flat, a catch for Rambo, and he is wrapped up quickly by Willie Middlebrooks on the corner.
Joffrey Reynolds was not used in the first quarter. In the first quarter of the game for Calgary, George Cortez had forgotten about Joffrey Reynolds. He had 1 touch for 2 yards, 1 rushing play in quarter 1. He ended up with 7 touches in the first half.
Reynolds in 9 previous games against Toronto has averaged 98 yards rushing per. And here's play action. Teo Johnson, the big tight end. And he crashes across midfield. Kenny Wheaton stepped up, and that was a good collision.
That might have hurt the arm of Teo Johnson because he went to throw his forearm and take some of the shock away from that hit from Kenny Wheaton. And when he did, see, he comes from the bunch side and then just shoots right out the opposite side of the formation. But watch this hit. Looked like that right arm got caught on the helmet of Kenny Wheaton.
And so Johnson gets attention. Wheaton missed last week's game with a shoulder problem that's been a chronic ailment all season long. Here's Summers now coming across, and he makes the catch. And is close to another first down.
And you can just tell by the first few plays of this second half for Calgary that the instructions from George Cortez to Henry Burris was patience. That was the word I'm sure he used. Let's be patient. Let's dump the ball off. Let's run some of those quick screens, get the flats going, start to work the underneath stuff, and let's see if we can't pull the Toronto Argonauts closer to our guys so that maybe we can get behind them later in the fourth quarter. But right now, it looked like the word was patience in the locker room from Cortez.
At the 45, second and just under 2. And the pitch, Reynolds almost caught in the backfield, sidestep, great move, first down to the 33 when it looked like he'd be stopped for a loss.
You know, I mentioned newcomers for Toronto Argonauts. Pete Hunter is a newcomer as well. He's number 29 at the top of your screen, reads it very well. And look at the chance he has right here to make the big play on Joffrey Reynolds. But you always ask your running back to make that first guy miss, and a good one will always make the first guy miss in space, and that's what Joffrey Reynolds is. He's a good one.
Last week, the 112-yard performance by Reynolds came on the strength of the final drive when he ran for 69. So it won't take long for Reynolds to amass yards if he gets a steady diet. And he got the ball down to the 26 on that carry.
Well, there are newcomers, but this is a team, Toronto, on defense that are giving up 162, almost 163 yards per game along the ground. You know, in a word, they've been awful in their run defense this year. They look better tonight, but Cortez really didn't use the run in the first half.
back to it now. 7 more for Reynolds, 2nd and 3. And a fake to Reynolds, and there's Nick Lewis with the catch and a first down at the 12. Best looking march we've seen from Calgary tonight.
Talked to John Hufnagel about Nick Lewis before the game, and he said, you know, it has been a real pleasure coaching Nick Lewis. And I asked him to elaborate on that because, you know, Nick Lewis has a bit of a reputation that he likes to showboat a little bit and all that. He said, you should watch Nick Lewis play away from the football. And I have been watching Nick Lewis play away from the football. He sacrifices himself more than any player in that Calgary Stampeder team.
And he's playing hurt, bad knees, sore ribs. First down, ball batted as Claude Harriet, the newcomer at end, got a finger on the football. Intended for Jermaine Copeland. And a penalty marker at the line of scrimmage. And another major foul against the Argos.
Major foul. Unnecessary roughness. Toronto number 78. Half the distance to the goal. First down.
Adriano Belli. And another costly penalty gives Calgary a first down at the Argos 6.
Aaron Wagner had one in the first half in about the same place on the football field.
Best looking drive of the night for the Stamps. First and goal. And here's Reynolds with a little cut and then run down to 3 and run back. But Reynolds turned on a dime and looked like he was going to score.
Well, here's when we talk about Joffrey Reynolds being one of the good ones. You know, there's not many that can just, you get the ball and you're on the point of attack, you see that it's not there, can slam the brakes on that quickly and redirect yourself to the open area. Tremendous cut there by Joffrey Reynolds.
Aaron Wagner and Michael O'Shea check in. Ball on the 3, 2nd and goal.
Another run.
Rambo in motion. And they look for the jump ball in the corner. Intended for Teo Johnson. Incomplete. It'll be 3rd and goal from the 3, and DeAngelis and the field goal unit come onto the field. Well, they tried the old jump ball for the former basketball player out of Stanford, Teo Johnson.
Yeah, and they feel like they could try this once a game. I mean, Teo Johnson, and you could see his arm maybe bothering him from that hit from Kenny Wheaton. Maybe that was part of the reason he couldn't come down with that, because he will win more of those jumps than he'll lose.
Just like the Hail Mary on the final play of the first half of the Montreal game. So a chip shot for DeAngelis from the 10. Unless Calgary has something on. They don't, and it's drilled in a late flag. And we're not sure if those 3 points are going to stay on the board or not. Well, Calgary's going to have to do it over.
It looked like a legal procedure call against the Calgary Stampeders.
Wonder if this is an alignment call. Did somebody not check in? Craig Dickinson is.
Legal procedure. Calgary, no end, 5-yard penalty. It remains 3rd down.
So they'll come back and try it from 5 yards further out.
And I'm not sure why that all would take as long as it did, only because, and I only say that because it's pretty cut and dry. You got to kick it again, and it shouldn't be that big a deal for Sandro DeAngelis, that's for sure, because they were so close anyway. I think Michael O'Shea was seeing if he could get the penalty assessed on the kickoff and give them the points. But if you decline the penalty and give them the points, you don't get the penalty.
Now the Argos with too many men on the field. Wagner scampers off in time. Play whistled in. And they do it correctly this time. No flag. 3 more for the Stamps on the first drive of the second half. Back in Toronto, where Claude Fagg is on the sidelines.
Well, you guys mentioned Teo Johnson in that last sequence who got hurt. He, in fact, is the younger brother of Argo Real Johnson. There's a 3.5-year difference between the two. And talk about the sibling rivalry that had been a long time coming. In fact, these two haven't faced each other since their NFL days back in 2003, where Real was playing for the Cincinnati Bengals and Teo was playing for the Oakland Raiders. But that didn't last too long because Real got hurt in that game, and it looked for a while here like Teo was going to get hurt in this game, but they're actually facing each other, guys.
Yes, Real Johnson wasn't a starter. He was upset about that, Claude, and he has been in on numerous reps, and they say this film will last for 40 years. So.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. They say, you know, both of us, obviously, we want the win first. We were fighting for that, and we want to be a dominant physical presence anyway in every play, but what's really on the line here is bragging rights at the dinner table. That's what I heard and read about this little rivalry, and we'll see if they lock up. But Teo Johnson's trying to shake off that hit from Kenny Wheaton earlier.
How's this, okay?
So over 6 minutes before the Argos get the ball in the second half. And Jeff Johnson straight ahead up to the 32. Again, if you're joining us late, Dominique Dorsey out of the game in the first quarter with an ankle problem. And Jeff Johnson, Brian Crawford, and Andre Dury have done most of the work running the football in place of Dorsey.
And Wes Lysek also for the Calgary Stampeders, safety in the middle of their defense, who had an interception a week ago against Cody Pickett. He also left the game in the first half.
And without Lysek, Mike Labinjo not here with the Stamps after rolling an ankle earlier this week in practice. Both starting Canadians out of the Calgary defense. Here's Pickett on second down and being chased down by Shannon James, and throws that away to avoid a big loss, but it's a 2-and-out on the first possession of the second half.
First half, Dominic Dorsey again was showing us, what he can do. He had a couple of hits there. He got a little banged up and limped off after that one. Had a big return in the first half as well, and then on offense, after that hit from Shannon James, something wasn't right. Went to the sideline. They were looking at his knee and has not returned.
So third down, and Vanderjagt to kick it away. Big rush, and Vanderjagt just got it away. Bouncing past Howard. And he'll pick it up, and they will rule no yards. 5-yard penalty as he's buried at the 29, a 51-yard punt. The CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by Nissan's Make the Call. Play on cfl.nissan.ca for your chance to win a trip to the Grey Cup game in Montreal with over 50,000 seats already sold. We're at Rogers Centre tonight. 28,678 on hand. Watching the Stampeders with the lead. Henry Burris rolls, and that pass delivered high, and Copeland couldn't bring that one down.
Jonathan Brown was chasing Henry Burris from the backside, and if not for Jonathan Brown, Burris can set up. Burris is going to come out this way here, and Jonathan Brown's going to come and chase him from the backside. If he doesn't chase him here, Burris will set up, turn back, and he's got a wide open Brent Ralph who scores easily. He walks in. There's no one around down the middle of the field. That's what a little pursuit. You never give up on the backside of a play.
I think we see that every week. There's a wide open Brent Ralph. Flag down. And a pass that falls incomplete. Middlebrooks and Rambo dueling, and let's see what the marker's all about.
Burris is having problems gripping the football.
Offside. Toronto number 92, 5-yard penalty. Still second down.
Bud Harriet offside. The Argos, the most penalized team in the CFL.
Take a look at this throw again. I mean, Burris is really doesn't have anyone in his face, and he, that one comes off. Slipped out of his hand a little bit. That's what did the old-fashioned wank duck coming out of there.
Feels like there should be more penalty yardage than that. Pressure on Burris, stands in. He gets hit, ball is loose. And a penalty marker comes down. Who's got the football? And was that the empty hand rule? Did it look like Henry Burris
moving forward, you talk?
Yeah, was that an incomplete pass or a fumble? Derek Armstrong scooped it up for Calgary to make sure. And now the officials have to sort out another marker on the play.
Well, boy, the pressure from Jonathan Brown was awesome. It was awesome. Off the edge, it was a straight bull rush from Jonathan Brown that collapsed the pocket on him. That's why he's smiling ear to ear.
Loose ball interference. Calgary number 50. Penalty is a loss of bow. First down, Toronto.
Well, I think the loose ball foul was on 60, Derek Armstrong, but let's take another look.
Well, let's take a look at the play. First of all, to the left of your screen, just a tremendous bull rush from Jonathan Brown. You're right, it was Harriet who knocks it out.
Well, the ball is out before he comes forward.
That's right.
And because Armstrong pushed Harriet out of the way,
they get the ball.
Loose ball interference, and it is a first down for the Argos. So a turnover here and a big one. And John Hufnagel wants to challenge, but can't challenge a penalty.
No, you can't challenge that.
I don't think I've seen that call before.
Well, he can challenge whether or not it was fumbled or an incomplete pass. So he could challenge that. He can't challenge the penalty call.
So if it's incomplete, then there would not be a change of possession.
Right in here, I just want to show you something while we're sorting this out. That's Jonathan Brown just in front of Willie Powell right there. Watch Jonathan Brown play this one. Look at this. Up and bull rush, low drive, and he is just taking Jesse Newman right back into Henry Burris. That's a tremendous bull rush from Jonathan Brown. I just wanted to show you that as they sort out this. The veteran, there's one veteran for the Toronto Argonauts that has been through the battles that they won't mess with because he's getting it done.
Calgary withdrew their challenge. On the previous play, the foul was illegal interference on the loose ball. The penalty is loss of the ball, so it will be Toronto's ball, first down.
And that's not a challengeable play. So John Hufnagel did want to challenge whether or not there was the recovery of the football, that part of it anyway, and that's not challengeable.
So it's a big break for the Argos. They get the football on the Calgary 32-yard line. Fake to Johnson, Pickett. Out the flat, and Brian Crawford the catch. Dwight Anderson will toss him to the turf. And it's a gain of about 4 for Brian Crawford.
You know, this is a golden opportunity here for the Argonauts. I mean, you know, they get the ball in basically scoring zone. Cody Pickett, he's got the whole playbook he can look at. He's in second and medium here. Awesome opportunity here for the Argonauts because you don't get the feeling that they're really generating anything in this second half until now. Get that turnover.
2nd and 6. Pickett. And that one overthrown. And again, Browner all over the intended target, Bethel Johnson.
Yeah, Bethel Johnson cannot shake Brandon Browner right now. And Browner doesn't have any problem declaring what he wants to do. And Bethel Johnson's been trying to get some help from the striped shirts guys, and he's not going to get it over there.
So the Argos with 8 yards offense in this third quarter. But on the turnover from the penalty, they are in field goal range. And Vanderjagt surveying. from just outside the 35. Call it 36 for Vanderjagt. And Vanderjagt puts it through. So it's an 8-point game here. Calgary with the lead in the third quarter. Well, for every sack in tonight's game, Purelator donates the quarterback's weight in food to a local food bank. Purelator, where business is going. We're seeing a little more pressure on the quarterback of late.
Well, I liked what I saw from Jonathan Brown there. I know Toronto only has 20 on that list, but Jonathan Brown got the forced fumble as he got the push, and Claude Harriet also helped out with that forced fumble on the last series.
Stamps have 2 sacks. Argos 1 so far tonight. 24-16, Demetrius Summers. And Summers able to bring it back almost to the 50, and he has been dangerous back there tonight.
It's been an interesting game because, you know, when you watch this game from Henry Burris's perspective, you get this feeling that he hasn't really produced anything. I mean, and the numbers back that up.
The one pass to Copeland has embellished those stats.
And yet he has an 8-point lead.
Well, the difference in the game for the most part right now was the Vanderjagt mishandling of the punt, whether it was a fake or not, botched up, and Calgary turned it into 7 points. There's a pass over the middle and a completion inside the Argo 50, and a catch for Jermaine Copeland.
Mentioned what I thought was impressive on the last series was Jonathan Brown's pass rush. And the answer to that from George Cortez as Copeland catches that one over the middle is to go ahead and do this on Jonathan Brown. Now you got a double team. See, there's one, Newman. You got 2 guys now to make sure that they contain 97 because they start to cut him loose and it's trouble.
And the Argos using 4 down linemen for the most part tonight. Kenyon Rambo a catch, cuts it inside, and has another Calgary first down. Taken down by Willie Pyle. But Henry Burris has had a lot more momentum to this offense in the second half.
Yeah, he has, and he's going with the quick game. He's going with the quick game there. There's 97 here, and again he's getting hit. Lazio helps out the center, and often the center is free, and he hustles down and gets in on that tackle. But quick game also helps take the rush away.
Jonathan Brown, all CFL in 2007, 2005. First and 10, and that look in, slant to Brett Ralph with a catch, and some nice dancing after catch, and another Calgary first down.
Well, you got to love the courage of Brett Ralph here, because coming across the middle, you know you're going to get hit on that slant route, but he not only does that, he keeps coming into the middle, and then rather than run and flatten out and just head for the sideline, he comes right back up and lowers his shoulders and picks up good positive yards. Good yak yard play there for Brett Ralph.
Came into the game as the number 5 Canadian receiver in the CFL. And now Reynolds straight ahead. And Reynolds to the 17.
Calgary Stampeders have been down here before. You know, I was mentioning the opportunity the Argos had on that last turnover. They weren't in the red zone, but they were close to the red zone. That was a win for Calgary. It was a win for Calgary that they didn't give up the major there. Now they move the ball all the way down. Now they're in the red zone offensively.
So 2nd and 6. Johnson in motion. And now he'll set up as a wideout. Rambo comes inside. A pump. And looking for Rambo. Corner, and he can't bring it in. Well executed, but not the finish that the Stampeders were looking for.
Well, they've been setting this up with a quick game in the second half to Kenyon Rambo, and what Rambo's going to run from the left side of your screen is a corner route where he gets the pump on that post coming into the middle, and then he breaks back. He has Willie Pyle in a chase position. He is wide open by 4 or 5 yards. That ball thrown on a line with a little heat on it, and Rambo just can't corral the football.
Rambo, who came into the game on pace for 100 catches for the year. Burris laments the one that got away. So DeAngelis on. Looking for his third field goal of the night. Dead center from 25 out. As the Stamps add to their lead. TSN also home of the NFL. Sunday Night Football continues tomorrow night on TSN. The Eagles take on the Bears. Coverage at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. And Monday Night Football, the Ravens take on the Steelers. Coverage beginning 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. Available on TSN HD. Argos will scrimmage at their 35 after the DeAngelis field goal that makes it an 11-point Calgary lead. Cody Pickett's gone all the way so far. Less than 2 to go in the third quarter. And Arlen Bruce will catch a late flag, and Bruce brought down at the 40-yard line.
You know what Cody Pickett has shown so far, I think, in basically 3 quarters of play in this one is he has the arm strength to make that intermediate throw. You know, that was another example of it right there. And I think he's made a couple over the middle that solid throws in traffic. Throws a tight spiral.
Pass interference. Toronto number 5. 10-yard penalty. Still first down.
Well, and Bruce called a little push off there to get open, but he has shown that he's got a little bit of poise in the pocket, and also that he won't hesitate to shuffle. I don't say he's running per se, but he'll shuffle to buy himself some time and look for the holes, and that shows composure and patience for a real young guy getting his first reps.
I know the panel is split on this. I'm still getting my head around the MOP sitting on the bench. And this one up for grabs and nearly picked off. Pickett's shown some signs tonight, but
yeah, but that's what he hadn't shown there. Can he throw the deep ball? And that one was in between. You know, this is based on, it depends on who you ask, is basically what I'm saying, because half the people say Kerry Joseph is the Argos' best chance to win right now.
And I'm in that half.
Yeah, and there are some who say, hey, if you're mixing it up, and Adam Rita is obviously one of them, and so is Don Matthews, if you're going to mix it up, then mix it up at the top down, and that's the quarterback, starting with him.
2nd and 20, there's that little hitch to Bruce, and Bruce fumbles the football, and the Stampeders are on it, and no matter who's quarterbacking, this has been a problem for the Argos this year. It certainly was last week. And Dwight Anderson's up with the football, and Calgary will take over.
Well, you know, the play is an interesting one on the call, because Cody Pickett on 2nd and 20, I mean, when you're in your own end, there is one school of thought, which is, you know, get what you can and punt the football, and then you basically try and get the field position back on the punt. But pretty conservative call to run a hitch screen to Arlen Bruce on 2nd and 20.
Charleston Hughes with the forced fumble, picked up by Dwight Anderson. And Calgary takes over. Stampeders are +8 in the previous 3 games. There's a pump, and Burris has a wide open receiver and a touchdown for Ryan Thelwell. And that was easy. 32-yard touchdown toss. Burris to Thelwell.
The quick game we talked about when George Cortez came out in the second half. He started out with that quick game. He was working the sidelines, dumping the ball. Remember, I said patience was probably the word he used at halftime to say we got to be patient. What that patience does is, as the game progresses, then you can get the double moves. And that's twice now that Henry Burris has used the pump fake to open up a receiver on a double move. And Ryan Thelwell, again, well, he's wide open. It was Rambo who missed the earlier one.
Thelwell's 2nd touchdown of the year, the 26th tossed by Burris this season. As time ticks down in this third quarter, the Stampeders add to their lead, and it's starting to get away from the Argos.
Ryan Thelwell right there. Let's take a look at Ryan Thelwell take advantage of this pump fake, as the pump fake freezes Byron Parker on the outside. Parker looked like Byron Parker wanted to maybe jump the flat route, so Ryan Thelwell didn't even have to make a move. He just went right behind Byron Parker, who looked like he was going to leave his man and jump that short one. because there's a short one here by Brett Ralph. Now watch, see, now he's flat-footed, and right there, that movement by Byron Parker moving this way gets him in a bind, because if you're not backing up, you're in big trouble.
The Stamps have made teams pay for mistakes in recent games.
What's up, Amari? What's up,
Coming into this game, they were +8 in the turnover category in the last 3 games at 48 points off turnovers. So now in 4 games, 62 points off turnovers. So when you make one against the Stamps, they make you pay.
And some protection down when you get down in that scoring zone, and that's as important to get that major. They've been settling for some field goals with some opportunities. And Arlen Bruce gets a chance to get his hands on the ball again, possibly here.
Bruce from inside his 10. And Bruce brought down at the 26-yard line. Good downfield cover by Jawan Armour. And time for one play to wrap up the third quarter.
Been a tough start. Don Matthews' return to the Toronto Argonauts. Now in control of a team that's been outscored 107-29 in the 2 previous games in these 3 quarters.
This now the 10th game up 13 this year for the Argos that they've allowed over 30 points in the 7th consecutive game. That's not all on the defense, but it has been a problem this year. They've already given up way more points than last year's total. In fact, about 100 more points already than they allowed all of 2007. We're through 3 quarters of play. Calgary in charge. Third quarter stats are brought to you by Tim Hortons. Always fresh, always.
Just 14 yards of offense in the third quarter for the Toronto Argonauts, and that, the question again becomes, do you go back to Kerry Joseph?
Well, the one thing they said is, you can't change everybody on the offense, so it's easy to change the quarterback, but why not tweak the scheme to accentuate the strength of a quarterback who was the best player in the league last year?
Without question, and clearly Don Matthews has said that Steve Brattle, the offensive coordinator, are going to stay with the system, and that system is more suited to a drop-back quarterback, which is Cody Pickett right now. But clearly the offense is struggling in that third quarter, and like what has happened in Winnipeg, when they bench Kevin Glenn, do you go back to Kerry Joseph?
Kevin Glenn comes back off the bench and now has authored a 3-game win streak, has won 4 of 6 since returning as the starter.
And like when you analyze that and try and break it down, you could say that Cody Pickett isn't necessarily the problem. I mean, that was a nice throw up there to Arlen Bruce, and he has thrown the ball well on occasion. But you have a chance at second place in the East. Is that your best chance, number 4? Or is the guy out there right now, number 3, your best chance? That's the question you got to ask.
Just got their first down of the second half, and Reggie McNeil has another one down inside the Calgary 50. So suddenly Pickett picks it up.
Well, and maybe he feels the pressure of what we're talking about right now, because that's a question that once the offense starts to stagnate, that you say, well, when do you make that change to possibly go back last year's most outstanding player? But 2 good throws in a row to start this fourth quarter at least keeps him in the game for now.
You would think they'd have to score here on this drive if they had a chance in this game. There's a nice catch by McNeil as he went high to bring that down at the Argo sideline.
And the other thing, and I'll wrap up the thought here on these 2 quarterbacks, because clearly Cody Pickett is the guy, and Don Matthews is going to see what he can do. And from what I understand, there hasn't been a lot of communication between the coaching staff and Kerry Joseph over the last couple of weeks anyway, which would indicate that maybe they don't even consider putting Kerry Joseph back in the game. Maybe that's not even in the thought process.
Doesn't look like it. 2nd and 4. Quick hitter inside. And a first down. And Bruce loses his helmet on that play. Down at the 36, but holds on to the football.
It doesn't change anything for Cody Pickett. For Pickett, this is valuable experience. And if he can somehow rally this team, finish off this drive, it starts with the first touchdown when you're trying to come back. That's valuable experience for him, and that's what he's thinking about. But where does that leave last year's outstanding player? Interesting.
1st and 10. Pressure from the Stamps. Ducking under and now ducking down and hitting the deck is Cody Pickett as Dwayne Carpenter off the edge started the Calgary surge.
Yeah, and it was a big one because it looks like it may push Toronto. Well, we'll see. There's more flags on the field
extra
here.
Stuff going on there.
We'll see who this is against because that sack looked like it pushes Toronto out of field goal range. That pocket just completely collapses. You could see all the pressure from Calgary they had. It was the kitchen sink after Pickett. And then after a little pushing and shoving in the pile.
It didn't look like Eddie Freeman wanted to get off too soon.
There's the penalty.
Brian Ramsey will pull him off. And again, it's always the last guy, the last retaliation that draws the flag. Ramsey, the former rugby player out of Victoria, who knows how to get into a scrum.
Well, and the fact that the helmet came off is what sold it.
Major foul. Unnecessary roughness. Toronto number 57. 15-yard penalty. That penalty is enforced from the end of the play. It will be 2nd down.
That will take them out of field goal range.
Well, but it does give them the down over. But now you're 2nd and about half a mile.
10, 20, 33, or 34.
Okay.
34. Back at the Argo 50. Not the time to go hit screen.
No.
Here comes the pressure. They screen it. Jeff Johnson pops the ball. A fumble for Jeff Johnson. And a scramble. And does Calgary have it? Yes. 2nd consecutive week that Jeff Johnson has fumbled. And the turnovers start to mount once again for Don Matthews' crew. The CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by CFL All-Star Voting. On now, go to futureshop.ca/All-Star and vote for your favorite player.
Boy, Shannon James made an all-star type play, forcing that fumble for the Calgary defense.
That's the 4th forced fumble for Shannon James. He takes the league lead in that department from his teammate Brandon Browner and his opponent tonight, Kenny Wheaton.
Say that 4th forced fumble 4 times fast.
I'm having enough trouble. Calgary takes over at the Argo 53, and here's Summers. And Demetrius Summers has had a productive night, and now on offense makes a big play. He'll be marked out at the Argo 36.
Love to show some of these plays for the young football players, the young kids watching. Look at this backside Shannon James right there. He's the backside of the play, quarterback rolling away, but he doesn't quit. He sees the screen, he doesn't quit, keeps coming, he doesn't quit, keeps coming. There he is right there, and watch what he does. All the way from the backside, comes across with the right hand, strips the ball, causes the forced fumble, his team recovers.
That's that kind of hustle that got him a gladiator distinction. A couple of weeks back, Joffrey Reynolds, the ball carrier.
Those are the gladiator type plays, and that's what separates good teams from average teams is the play away from the ball, the play from the backside. Are you always hustling? Are you always trying to get there on defense? If it's an offensive play, you may not get the ball. You may be on the backside of the play.
That's how we do.
But are you always hustling?
Let's go. All my fam out there, I
4
love you.
forced fumbles, 7 knockdowns, 47 tackles, a sack, an interception, for a touchdown. He's had a busy year. 2nd and 7 for Burris. Pocket collapses. Burris steps up, and he's going to take a hit from the newcomer, Walter Curry. And he'll come up short of the 1st down.
And Curry was there along with Michael Shea.
Field goal unit will come on and try and make it 17 points off turnovers for Calgary tonight.
Yeah, and even though that it looks like Calgary is taking control of this game, this is a good decision by John Hufnagel. You're on the road. You're in a place where you haven't won since 2000. I had to go back and check all the games to make sure that stat was true.
8 years almost to the day. It was September 28, 2000, the last time Calgary won here. DeAngelis from 35 yards out. And Sandro is good again, and it's a 3-touchdown lead for the Stamps. The CFL on TSN is brought to you in part by Rona, proud sponsor of the CFL. Rona, the Canadian how-to people. So 17 points off turnovers and now a 21-point Calgary advantage with 10 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. And Pickett trying to wear it out here. Reggie McNeil can't bring it down. Dwight Anderson good in coverage again.
Well, you know, Cody Pickett showed some arm strength there. That was a nice throw to the outside. That's the wide side of the field, so that's a long throw. 75, 80-yarder right there, even though it was incomplete. Tonight, he's made that intermediate throw. I mean, that went to Bethel Johnson early on. He's shown that he can move around in the pocket a little bit. But, Chris, I thought you made a great point when you're talking about Kerry Joseph, the screen passes that they've worked into the offense. But Kerry Joseph and Cody Pickett.
Second and 10. And Bruce off his hands and almost intercepted. Well, later tonight we're going to see Quentin Porter. I understand why Quentin Porter is getting a look as Hamilton looks to the future with 2 wins. This quarterbacking decision was made while the Argos were still very much in a race and still are with Winnipeg.
Yeah, they are.
In fact, they were tied when this decision was made, and now Winnipeg, in fact, they were ahead of the Bombers in the standings.
Well, okay, and here's the other thing. You mentioned earlier that do you get a quarterback and then change your offense to suit your quarterback, or do you change the quarterback? They've changed the quarterback to suit the offense.
Marcus Howell from the 33. And Brian Crawford bolting downfield with a good special teams tackle. Let's check back in with Claude Faig on the sidelines.
Well, for the most part, Chris, it is a very jubilant Stampeders sideline. Of course, they've opened things up here, but they have lost a couple of players. Safety Wes Lysiak was gone in the first half. He's icing a right leg, and obviously he did not come back. And now offensive guard Jeff Pilon is done. He's got a shoulder ailment. He's also icing it. He, too, was done early in this one.
Jeff Pilon, who missed the last 2. Wes Lysiak injured on the opening kickoff, an ankle problem. But there's Jeff. But this Calgary team poised to win its 5th on the road this year, a team that did not win outside of Alberta in 2007.
That's one of the things that John Hufnagel was emphasizing. He was talking about the fact that the team hadn't won here since 2000. They showed that film. I mentioned that. But he went further than that. He said, you know, it's been that kind of year, guys. Everyone's been telling you can't win on the road. We've done that. Everyone said you can't win in BC in the Dome. We've done that. You can't win in Toronto. Now we got to go do that.
That one inside for Rambo, but incomplete. And it will be 3rd down, a 2 and out.
You know, and you have to actually give the Argonaut defense a little credit, because Henry Burris has shredded some defenses in this league this year. Pays to be a front runner as a nominee for outstanding player this year. But Kavis Reed's group, who is starting to learn sort of a new system down to that 4 lineman type of deal, is starting to play better. They could eliminate some penalties and things like that. But the bottom line is that Burris has not put up big numbers tonight.
Well, this is one of those games, and Don Matthews loves to talk about the game coming down to 5 plays. And you could easily make it the case that 5 plays or less have been the difference tonight. Arlen Bruce wrestled down inside the 30. You consider the Vanderjagt gaff that resulted in a giveaway touchdown in the first half when it looked like the Argos had been the better team, and then 17 points off turnovers in total. A couple of fumbles have come back to cost the Argos in the second half.
And it appears that Cody Pickett will take this game from wire to wire. That creates more of that discussion.
With 69 yards of offense in the second half. Starting at the 29, and a fake to Johnson, and a pass that Arlen Bruce didn't look like he was ready for.
No, he wasn't. And you know, you mentioned earlier, Chris, about Kerry Joseph, and when you get Kerry Joseph and you bring him in, the outstanding player, what's his strength? His strength is to run and to throw on the run first. Steve Barato's offense is a pocket passing offense. So they didn't change it for Kerry Joseph and tried to have that square peg fit in that round hole. Now they've changed the quarterback. This game, they've thrown from the pocket 28 times and rolled out 4.
Hook up with Bruce here, but short of the first down as he's wrestled down by Keon Raymond, who has a touchdown in the game.
So clearly, if you're throwing from the pocket 28 times, and that's 29 now.
Yes.
And only rolling out 4, your offense is not suited for a running quarterback, okay? They have a running quarterback. They brought him in. Maybe the coaching staff didn't bring him in, but he's here. So they're not going to change the offense for Kerry Joseph. They're going to try and change the quarterback, and that's why Cody Pickett's going wire to wire.
2 and out, and Vanderjagt to punt. 7 minutes remaining. Bouncing around, picked up a no yards flag, and now loaded at the Argo bench. This is, I guess, the encouraging side for Toronto, and what I don't think anybody in Calgary is worried about is that Henry Burris has been kept in check most of the night. He's had a couple of moments.
No yards. Toronto number 26. Penalties decline. First down.
And a better second half. And you do see some signs that the defense for the Argos is improving.
Well, you look at this, yeah. I mean, the numbers are starting to add up now a little bit for Henry Burris. I mean, his completion percentage is not great, but you look at their losses this year, the Calgary Stampeders, coming into this game tonight, all but one, they were right in it. Very close games.
Poised to win 4 in a row, and a quick jump there. False start by Jonathan Brown.
You know, you could almost argue that the Calgary Stampeders under new head coach John Hufnagel, they could have an even better record. And they're tied for first right now.
Offside.
Because look at
Toronto
this.
number 97. 5-yard penalty. Still first down.
Look how close these games were. I mean, 3 points to Edmonton.
Well, last-minute touchdown. Jason Tucker, an amazing catch. Last-minute touchdown.
Exactly.
Ryan Dinwiddie in Winnipeg.
So you take out Labor Day. And remember, Henry Burris was injured and didn't play for a lot of that game in Labor Day. That team could have an even better record, and they are for real.
Poised to move into first place in the CFL West. Here's Summers carrying the football, breaking tackles, and down the sidelines, pushed out at the 15-yard line. They'll mark him at the 16. So Demetrius Summers gives us a glimpse of how he set high school records in South Carolina.
Well, how about that for depth, too, in the Calgary backfield? I mean, Joffrey Reynolds, star running back. There's nothing wrong with him. And then you add Demetrius Summers, John Cornish. You've got some depth now in that. And all these guys good on the teams. Demetrius Summers had some nice returns tonight.
He has had a good night. See Nick Lewis dancing on the sidelines. He can take the rest of the night off. First down. Burris, corner route, and out of the reach of Kenyon Rambo. That's been the most dangerous combination in the league this year, but not really in sync tonight.
No, they've done a nice job, the Argos, of taking Kenyon Rambo out of the offense a little bit. But Ben Sankey's going to warm up. I'm sure we'll see him in the next series. Get a few valuable reps with real bullets.
He becomes the insurance policy now that Dave Dickinson's season is done on the 9-game injured list. 2nd and 10 from the 16. And Burris looks for Brett Ralph. Ralph with the catch. Trying to get to the first down, and he's going to be close.
He will be close. I mean, close enough that John Hufnagel could, even if they're short, really consider going here. Especially this far down in the Argos' end. There he is. I'll sharpen my pencil and do a better circle next time. But he just sits out on the outside and breaks that one tackle by Byron Parker to make it close.
So 3rd, less than a yard. Stampeders have been good on a couple of 3rd down gambles in this game. And we'll go here from the 6. Plunges ahead behind the veteran center, Rob Lazio.
You know, the BC Lions will play the Hamilton Tiger Cats next. And when you look at this Toronto Argonaut team and all the changes that they're going through and the fact that it's really an open audition, I know the records aren't, they're still 2 wins behind, but I think Hamilton is closer than Toronto is right now.
Well, Hamilton has the head start on this retooling.
And they're doing it with some young players too. Appreciate Rodriguez is one example. They bring in Kent Keith. That gives them so much depth at the running back. I mean, that team is closer than the Argos.
Play stopped before it got underway. Reynolds and Cornish were in the eye.
Ben Sankey in the game now, and I think after that last quarterback sneak where John Hufnagel saw some extra shots on his quarterback, Henry Burris, he thought, you know what, let's do it now.
Offside. Toronto number 78. Half the distance to goal. 1st down.
Adriano Belli's number called again. And he doesn't agree.
I was talking to head officiating Tom Higgins before the game. Adriano Belli walked by and did what he always does, gives everyone a kiss. And then he said, Tom, I've been good this year. And he said, yes, you have, Adrian.
There's Reynolds stacked up. Extra effort. Does he get there? Waiting for a signal. Then the ball came loose. As the umpire, Reynolds didn't get in. Thought he did.
And I know this is a lopsided blowout now all of a sudden, but look at the demeanor of the Toronto Argonauts, and you know, other than a couple of little moments in this game, there's not much fight in that dog. When you're down, that's really one time when coaches are evaluating. You're down. They want to know who quits, who shuts it down.
2nd and goal. Sankey to plunge. And did he get in this time? He does. Touchdown, Stampeders. Some Calgary fans here tonight. They get a chance to cheer again.
How about the Calgary Stampeders in this offense? Last 3 games, 38, 41, 34, and at 43 right now. They are putting some points on the board.
And if George Cortez's offense was running tonight like it had been the previous few weeks, you wonder how many they might have put up tonight.
Yeah, from the beginning, yeah, without question.
Point after makes it 44-16. We're headed to the 3-minute warning and also headed to Dave Randor.
Garbage work. Little work. Just give me a little work, that's all. I'm blessed, though. Remember that.
Thank you, Dave. Well, my scouts didn't tell me Brian was as good as he was, but Omar did prevail.
Yeah, I get to pick the next two. All right, I get to pick first.
No, I think I've already selected Dallas.
You got to jump. You did good advanced scouting on your part.
On the return, Andre Dury. Some good hustle and some extracurricular down there as the special teams battle.
You know, the question for Calgary, I think, coming into the year was would this young defense mature? I really think they are. I mean, that's the one thing for John Hufnagel that he's got to be happy with. Now, we'll see how the health of Wes Lysak is, but Chris Jones has used his experience to rally a young group. Young offense or defensive line, that secondary. Wes Lysak, a 6-year player. Other than that, only 2 years across the board in experience. And they're really starting to gel.
Really cut out the big play. This will be the 6th consecutive game without allowing a 40-yard play, and that one going in reverse. And this is a guy that's really impressed me this year. Charleston Hughes, who was cut out of training camp, brought back because of injuries, and now he's got himself a job on the end.
Well, nothing like being released and realizing that you're out of work to give you that wake-up call and understand that you have to play every play with a sense of urgency. And this team is up 44-16, and he played like that play was his last.
That's his 6th tackle for a loss this year. He came in with 43 tackles at defensive end. And it's a loss of 15, second and 25, and Pickett shovels it ahead. Jeff Johnson wrestled down. Juwan Armour with the quick takedown that time, and this defense is swarming.
Juwan Armour is experienced. He's one of the few, but Shannon James, the linebacking core solidified. They can bring in Carpenter, different situations. And then the D-line that is young, but coming together as a group. So, you know, this is a football team that will find themselves in first place temporarily. The Saskatchewan Roughriders play Montreal tomorrow.
First team to win 9 this year. Either Montreal or Saskatchewan will do that tomorrow, barring a tie. Jamie Jeff punting it away. And Summers takes it on the bounce. And look at Demetrius Summers again. Late flag as he is taken down at the 35-yard line. And Ben Sankey to mop up here.
The game after ours, the BC Lions and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. You know, I know that the Hamilton fans are very frustrated, and that game just kicking off now, so we'll get to that as soon as we can.
Illegal block. Calgary number 29, 10-yard penalty. First down.
But just so fans know, the TV rules are that we finish one before we go to the other, even though it's a little lopsided here. But the bottom line is that the Hamilton Tiger Cats have been battling the last few weeks have been very close, but for a couple of mistakes at key times. I mean, that team probably has a couple wins, and you know, I think they're a lot closer. Quentin Porter looked good. They still have Casey Printers, and I know a lot of people have given up on. I haven't. Summers off the left side, slashing, turning, spinning, breaking tackles to the 43. And he's making an impression late in this game. Our game story brought to you by Molson Canadian. This is our beer. Well, the only bright light for the Argonauts on offense has been Dominic Dorsey, and he left in the first quarter. So when you look at that part, that first chapter of our game story, you can look up and you can see why the score is what it's at. Cody Pickett, 182 yards. Hasn't looked bad. Hasn't really been the problem for Toronto, but not really the solution either.
Now, 193 last week. They said good enough to get another start. And 182 tonight. There was a face mask at the end of that good run by Summers.
I want to just sum up that thought on Cody Pickett and Kerry Joseph. On Labor Day, Kerry Joseph threw for 399 yards. Is Cody Pickett able to do that?
I agree with you.
Are you still fighting for a playoff spot, or are you just auditioning for 09? I guess is the question.
Well, clearly the auditions are open here, and to your point about Hamilton, I think they've got a lot of the core the auditions are kind of coming to an end there, and now it's seasoning good young players, good young talent. Now they've still got work to do, but they've got more pieces in place than it would appear that the Argos are content with, even though the Argos have more wins.
Now we're out on discussing things with Kerry Joseph. Who knows, maybe that discussion is about next week.
I will say Kerry Joseph's handled this with a lot of class.
And he has, and you know, that's all. He really has no choice. But I talked to him before the game, and you know what he said to me? He says, my role on this team right now is to help Cody Pickett.
Will be third down.
And I was, you know, we haven't done an Argo game, Chris, you and I haven't, for a couple of weeks now, and so I hadn't had a chance to talk to many of the players for a while, and I was surprised because I've heard everything that's gone on, and I asked, you know, Kerry Joseph, and he said, I said, come on, give me something. You're frustrated, you're mad. He goes, Glenn, my role now is to help Cody Pickett succeed. We've got to get things going. We've got to try to win some games. We're still in it. So yeah, he has handled himself as a professional.
Loss it down. Makes it 3rd and 17 as there's a time count violation. John Hufnagel just wants to have the clock run out here. Doesn't want to inflict any further damage.
Timeout, Calgary.
Well, there seemed to be some confusion in the setup, so they do call the timeout and decide that a kick team will come on. And if it was a close game, we'd be trying a 42-yard field goal, but
How about the brain trust offensively for the Calgary Stampeders and the years of experience they have to lean on? George Cortez, John Hufnagel, and you throw in sprinkle in a little Dave Dickinson to help out. You know, Henry Burris, who is really just peaking, I think, as far as his maturity level. Dave Dickinson right there all the time talking to him on the sideline. I mean, boy, that's a lot of experience and ingenuity.
Dale sends it into the end zone, and it's going to be brought out. Byron Parker up to the 4-yard line. It's time for tonight's TSN Turning Point.
Just before the half, the Calgary Stampeders send one deep into double coverage, and Jermaine Copeland comes up with it, leads to Joffrey Reynolds' touchdown. He gets the assist, Reynolds gets the goal, and the Calgary Stampeders said goodbye from there.
TSN Turning Point brought to you by the 2008 GMC Sierra Professional Grade. I misread that last series. I think John Hufnagel was happy with that time count violation.
Acting like a #1 team right now.
They are acting like that #1 team.
And a completion up to the 9-yard line.
And
Arlen Bruce came right out of his shoe that time.
You have to get his spare tire on.
Final minute here, and then we'll take you to BC Lions and Ticats. And we'll get set to head to Montreal for what should be a good one tomorrow, Saskatchewan. And the Montreal Alouettes. Andre Talbot has a first down at the 15.
Yeah, that's an interesting matchup as well. Montreal Alouettes, they're on some kind of roll. Anthony Calvillo on top of his game. They get Avon Coburn back. Michael Bishop will get the start. Looks like Ken Miller's sort of leaning over in Saskatchewan to almost a 2-quarterback system. He was real quick to pull Bishop last week and hasn't started Darian Durant.
Long out, Reggie McNeil's got it. Boyd Anderson there takes him down. 21 seconds on the clock. The last 4 games, the Argos have been outscored 162-48.
You think there will be more changes in Toronto? And you know, you talk about regrouping and you talk about evaluating and all those things. I think this is just a complete overhaul.
Well, this is a team that had won 42 games in the previous 4 years and usually was better in the second half.
But, you know, and Don Matthews is new, and he'll be evaluating, and he'll, you know, the one thing about Don Matthews, and I played for him, he is one of the best in the business at knowing exactly what's needed and going and finding it. And so he will start that long journey right now. In fact, he did 2 weeks ago. But some of the blame and some of the fingers have to be pointed towards upper management in this situation as well.
PK Sam with a catch in traffic. All right, Don Matthews has just inherited this.
Yeah.
He'll be 0-3 in his return to Toronto.
No, but you can question sort of the culture that's been built over the last couple of years. I mean, the decisions from Adam Rita and Greg Mons, who are bringing in talent to bring in former first-round draft picks. I mean, there's a lot of things that they've done that other teams haven't.
Arlen Bruce with the catch on the final play of the game, and the Toronto Argonauts have lost 4 straight. John Huffnagel's team has won 4 in a row, 6 of 7, and now are in first place in the CFL West at 9-4. Argos dropped to 4-9. There's the final. Let's head to Vancouver. Rod Black and Dwayne Ford.